About 65. Whenever we start.
Welcome to the 2024 West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame induction ceremony from Sonoma Raceway. The West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame was conceived in 2001 as a means of recognizing significant contributors and contributions to the sport of auto racing. The 2024 inductees include the Modern Era, Dick Cobb, Eric Holmes, Jimmie Johnson, Jimmie Vasser, and Cal Wells. The Heritage Class, Joe Huffaker Sr., Steve Lewis, Emmett and Tom Malloy, and Paula Murphy. In the Pioneers of Speed category, Johnny Boyd, Jack Dill, Fred Frame, Ted Horn, Frank Lockhart, Rex Mays, Jimmy Murphy, Bob Swanson, Ernie Triplett, and Louis Vermeil. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we would like to welcome our MC for the event to the stage. Put your hands together and give a big round of applause to Ralph Shaheen.
Well, hi everybody, good evening. How's everybody doing? It is so good to be back home. Right, Jimmie? Great to be back home. Great to see so many friends from here in Northern California and all across the country have made their way here to Sonoma Raceway for what is always a huge weekend on the NASCAR calendar. And for those of us who grew up racing here in the NorCal area, it is so great to be your hosts and to have you here this weekend. So looking forward to what should be a great night here with us. Sadly this week, our racing community lost a legend, a member of our inaugural class of the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame, the great Parnelli Jones. Parnelli accomplished so much in racing and was a hero to all of us. Of all the things that were said this week about PJ, I don't think anybody said it better than Mario Andretti. And let me read for you what Mario said. As far as I'm concerned, Mario said, Parnelli Jones was the greatest driver of his era, whether he was racing sprint cars, Indy cars, sports cars, Can-Am, or stock cars. He exhibited a flair that was all his own. He had aggressiveness, but also a finesse that no one else possessed. And he won with everything he put his hands on, including, of course, off-road. I certainly looked up to him, and I won my first championship in 1965 only because Parnelli retired after Indy that year. And for that, I say thank you. Had he continued racing, PJ would have amassed a record that would have been the envy of everyone. So, if you want to describe a total winner, there you have it, Parnelli Jones. That from the great Mario Andretti. I don't think you could say it any better. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Jones family. And as we all know, freedom is not free. As we prepare to honor tonight some of the biggest heroes in racing on the West Coast, we need to take a minute to remember those that are the greatest heroes the world has ever seen. The incredibly brave men who stormed the beaches of Normandy 80 years ago today. If you will, please join me in a moment of silence as we remember those that never returned from the French beaches. Okay, because of their heroism, we get to enjoy a fantastic night here tonight. So let's get that part started. What do you say? I would like to welcome a few special guests who are here with us tonight. The Vice Chairman of NASCAR, Mr. Mike Helton, Mike, great to see you. The president of NASCAR, Mr. Steve Phelps. Hi, Steve. The COO of NASCAR, Mr. Steve O'Donnell. Hi, Steve. The president of Sonoma Raceway, Brian Flynn. Brian, great to have you with us. And thank you for the use of this amazing room again, Brian. And we want to welcome a new neighbor, if you will, to Northern California, the new CEO of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, joining us here tonight for the first time with our Hall of Fame banquet, Miss Lori Eberhardt. Lori, welcome to Northern California. Glad to have you as a neighbor. Now, if you will, please welcome to our stage the chairman of the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame, Mr. Ken Clapp.
I have my glasses tonight. We've just got one priority this evening. That's to recognize and honor those who have gone above and beyond in motorsports for the past 100 years and hail from the West Coast. There are several people I want to recognize who have helped make this evening happen and grow. And it has grown, my goodness. The entire Sonoma Raceway staff, especially Bree, Pete, Brian, our catering manager, David Keegan. They've gone above and beyond to try to give you folks the best they possibly can. Over the years, there have been a handful of friends who have stepped forward to go above and beyond with continuous support and leadership, driving the Hall to greater heights, way beyond what we ever dreamed of when it started 23 years ago. Alan and Chris Mangini, Craig Q, Star Nurseries, Las Vegas, Nevada, Gary Bechtel, Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, the Gone family, South Point Resort and Casino, Las Vegas, NASCAR, Hoosier Tires, Goodyear Tires, Carlos Vieira and his 5150 Philanthropist of the Year Award, Richard Woodland and the Estrella Museum in Paso Robles, where one day he and I were walking around, and he said, "Oh, there's one thing I didn't show you. I want to show you." We came upon a big arch inside the museum. There was nothing in this room, and he pointed at a little temporary sign, and it said, basically, Hall of Fame Museum. And he dedicated that to this Hall of Fame. He appreciated way beyond what he might even imagine. They also provide the wine for tonight's party. Least and far from last, a gentleman I met in the hallway in North Carolina about 10 years ago, and we've become very close friends. He owns the Worldwide Technology Raceway in St. Louis, where we had a very successful event last weekend. Mr. Curtis Francois. Gateway, Worldwide Technology Gateway, is also the title sponsor of this Hall of Fame and has been now for a number of years. I could go on and on. Anyone not mentioned is not forgotten. We have all worked as a fantastic team over the years, and I thank you with an immense amount of respect and sincerity. 6 years ago, the Hall started providing financial donations to numerous charities on an annual basis. As of 3 weeks ago, we exceeded $1 million of gifting. Our next goal is to do the same, but in 4 years. I thank everyone who has supported this effort. Please enjoy the evening as we honor so many who have excelled in the great sport of automobile racing. Thank you. Ralph, the ball's back in your court. Enjoy your dinner. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, we're going to continue right through dinner, so I don't want you to worry about that. Just go ahead and enjoy your meal. Please keep the knives and forks down to a minor roar so we can hear our inductees. But we do want to give our invocation, so please welcome Mr. Bob Butcher from MRO to the stage.
Thank you, Ralph. This is an incredible honor, but every year as I come and we watch this grow, it just gets more amazing, and it's just such a blessing. Yes, we remember the Jones family and so many others that we've lost, let alone the D-Day heroes and the other men and women that have served our country. And without them, none of us would probably be enjoying this incredible sport. So, as we eat and as we do all this incredible honor and tonight to amazing people, I want to say this crowd looks awesome. You're part of it. So, Father, we come to you in Jesus' name and we say thank you so very much for the privilege to have such an honoring time each year. And may this continue to grow as Ken was talking about, and we give you the praise and all the glory for it. Amen. Thank you, Ralph.
Okay, as we get ready for our first presentation of the evening, please welcome to the stage for our 5150 Philanthropy Award, Mr. Jason Van Duzen.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? It's like we got food in front of us. My name's Jason Van Dusen. I'm with 5150. I have the honor tonight to be here and present the Knocking Doors Down Philanthropist of the Year Award. Ken, I didn't bring my glasses tonight. I also didn't print my speech. So I should have my glasses so I could read it, but bear with me here. This award means so much to us. I get to work with some amazing individuals at 5150 who all believe in the same thing, doing whatever it takes to accomplish goals, and more importantly, helping others accomplish theirs. Whether through the Carlos Vieira Foundation, helping families living with autism, mental illness, or addiction. The 5150 boxing clubs as part of the Gloves Not Drugs campaign of the foundation to help keep kids off the street while learning the sport of boxing. The 5150 apparel line that represents the story we all have of battling through life to accomplish our goals and never giving up. Or the 5150 Junior Late Model Series at Madera Speedway, Kenny Shepard, helping some of the greatest youngsters behind the wheel get their opportunity. Sitting in a race car rather than sitting behind a screen or even worse, on the streets. You see, I'm a believer that we can do so much even with so little. And if we have more, well, we can do more. My wife and I are not rich financially speaking, but we still do what we can, like becoming foster parents, our time, assisting in addiction recovery programs, our experience, helping out at our church, our talents, or in our community with our skills. See, the definition of a philanthropist is someone who donates time, money, experience, skills, or talent to help create a better world. This award is so much more than an annual presentation, a trophy. It's a movement. It's a fire that should ignite in each of us to do more. Stemming from the book written by Carlos Vieira, where he tells his story of knocking doors down, starting a foundation, helping families, starting 5150 to ignite a fire in others, and never stopping to say why, because he already knew why. That's what we believe, and that's what we want to see more in this world. So, Let's start by knocking doors down for others to walk through. This year we get to recognize an organization that just last month raised over $678,000 through its Gainbridge NASCAR Day Give-a-thon. Founded in 2006 by the late Betty Jane France, this 501c3 national charity impacts children's lives through the Pediatrics Children's Fund and the annual Betty Jane France Humanitarian Award. This foundation has impacted more than 1.7 million children and given $46 million to children in need. They have established race-themed pediatrics children care units in Halifax Hospital in Daytona Beach, Florida, and the Homestead Hospital in South Florida. They recognize a fan annually who has shown amazing charitable donations or charitable giving efforts to children in their community with the Betty Jane France Humanitarian Award. So, it is with great honor that I get to introduce the 2024 Knocking Doors Down Philanthropist of the Year, the NASCAR Foundation. And please, a big round of applause accepting this award on behalf of the NASCAR Foundation. Please welcome Mr. Mike Helton.
Thank you very much, Jason. It's an honor to be recognized tonight, and Betty Jane would be very proud of this. Ken's organization, the momentum he's built for this hall on the West Coast, the things that she wanted NASCAR to do and give back to the communities that the NASCAR Foundation has been a part of for 18 years now. So tonight was very special, so thank you, Jason. Thank you, Ken, for your effort behind this, and Ken, on behalf of all of NASCAR, Steve Phelps, Steve O'Donnell, and their leadership at NASCAR, Nicole Tiger, and the leadership at the foundation that keeps this sport and all the moving parts and pieces kind of glued together and on track, no pun intended. I want to say personally thank you, because I've enjoyed our relationship for 40 plus years. And when I came into sport, I came into a group that I didn't realize that this much later we would still be who we are and what we are. But a lot of that is the pioneers and the legacy that came before all of us. And Ken, I learned a lot sitting around the meeting room and tables and social events that Bill Jr. and you and Paul Cameron and Les Richter and John Cooper allowed me into. So thank you for that mentorship and all the passion and loyalty you've had to the France family and to NASCAR for all these years. Thank you very much, Jason. We'll take this back and celebrate it with the entire foundation. Thank you.
How about a nice round of applause for Carlos Vieira and Jason and everything they do at 5150, as well as Mike and the folks at NASCAR. They keep giving back so much. If you don't mind, a quick round of applause for Michelle and Kim. They're going to be up here with me all night handing out the trophies, our 5150 ladies. You have no idea how tough that job gets to be, standing there all night handing that stuff out. It's a rough job. All right, for our next presentation, let's please welcome to the stage Mr. Kevin Malloy.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to introduce my father, Tom Malloy, and my grandfather, Emmett J. Malloy, whom we affectionately called Paper. On this special night, we honor their legacy as they are inducted into the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame. We have a large crowd here tonight of family members, so please allow me to take some time to introduce them. Unfortunately, our mom, Sharon Malloy, was not able to make the trip. She's been by our dad's side for the last 64 years of marriage and is undoubtedly his #1 fan. We will certainly fill her in on all the festivities. My wife Nancy is here, as well as our daughter Brenna and her partner Forrest, our daughter Monica and her husband Rob, and our youngest daughter Samantha. My sister Bridget is here with her husband John, and my sister Kelly is here. Our brother Ryan could not be here tonight, but his wife Michelle and his son Connor is with us. My dad's sister, Emmett's daughter, Sheila Malloy, is here. Joining Aunt Sheila is her son, my cousin John Arata, and his wife Frankie, and their daughter Reagan. I apologize, big group, but they made the trip. So, John and their son Luke returned with a group of us from a fantastic trip for the Indianapolis 500. I'll tell you, I've been fortunate, mainly because of Dad's involvement, to sit in some really good seats and even sit in some suites during the race. But by far, sitting in Kerry Agajanian seats in turn 1 was the best ever. Green flag drops, restarts, I mean, you're just right there. So if you ever get a chance, don't pass it up. My cousin Deborah Malin is here with her husband Phil. Phil, congratulations on 36 years of teaching and retiring. And their boys Grant and Scott are here with their girlfriends Jenna and Gracie. Thanks for letting me do that. During my formative years and well into my 20s and 30s, I was led to believe that my lineage on Dad's side was construction and equipment rental. Both Paper and Dad poured their hearts and souls into their businesses, and that's all I knew. As time moved on, I started to hear about Carroll Speedway, the racetrack in Gardena, California that Paper built and ran for years. I heard of his sprint car that he ran throughout the West Coast with such drivers like Jimmie Reese and Troy Ruttman. I started to pay more attention to the stories of my grandfather owning and running cars in the Indianapolis 500 for a few years in the 1950s. They had different budgets back then, so a successful dirt mover from Inglewood and Topanga Canyon, California could afford to race there. Not the case so much anymore. Still thinking I came from a construction equipment rental background, I began to notice that Dad was involved in all kinds of racing, from sponsoring cars and several different types of racing, as well as sponsorships of the local dirt tracks near home. In 1993, Dad and I journeyed back to Knoxville, Iowa to support Troy Ruttman when he was enshrined in the Sprint Car Hall of Fame, and then back again in 2018 when Paper was enshrined. I remember going to Riverside Raceway with Dad as a kid and thinking he was not just an ordinary fan. I remember my first trip to Indy in 1988 with Dad and Aunt Sheila. Dad and his friend Rocky Moran had rented A.J. Foyt's third car after he qualified his first two, and Rocky was able to put it in the show. I think the epiphany for me was when Dad bought that same car from A.J. a few years later and started racing in the Vintage Auto Racing Association series with a pretty good amount of success. He then bought some more cars so he could race more. I thought to myself, hey, wait a minute. Construction and equipment rental, that was what these two men did so that they could go racing. Owning, driving, and supporting other racers, this is who they were and are. This is our family's lineage, not only construction and equipment rental. Their passion for racing, dedication to the sport, and unwavering commitment to excellence have left an unforgettable mark in the racing community. Their achievements on and off the track serve as an inspiration to all who follow in their footsteps. With that, I'd like to welcome my dad, Thomas Emmett Malloy, up here to accept this prestigious award.
At an early age, Tom Malloy was introduced to racing watching legends such as Rex Mays, Troy Ruttman, Jimmie Reese, and Bill Vukovich drive his father's cars. Over the past 20 years, he has won historic races driving a Lola T70, Brabham BT18, and Porsche 962C. Tom has a successful NASCAR USAC midget team, and in 2022, Logan Seavey won the 80th running of the Turkey Night Grand Prix at Ventura Raceway. He has a passion for preserving the history of American racing and currently maintains the Malloy Foundation collection of race and high-performance street cars ranging in age from 1909 to 2019. Emmett Malloy, born April 11, 1908, was an Iowa farm boy who moved west in the 1930s, settling in Inglewood, California. In 1940, Malloy built Carroll Speedway, a half-mile dirt track. Post-war, Carroll quickly became a hotbed of West Coast racing, hosting all kinds of events from open-wheel racing to stock cars, sprint cars, and motorcycle racing. It was paved in 1948, and some of the era's most popular drivers raced there. On April 8, 1951, Marshall Teague drove his Hudson Hornet to victory in the first NASCAR Cup Series event west of the Mississippi River. Malloy decided to go racing as a sprint car owner in 1949, dominating the AAA East, Midwest, and West circuits. Inducted into the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, Malloy passed in 1971.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame and the Board of Directors for nominating and accepting my dad and myself as a member of the Hall. And Kevin, thank you for that great introduction about your grandfather and my dad and myself. I don't really need to go into a lot because Kevin's pretty much said everything, but I've said to Steve Lewis, who's sitting right here in front of me, what the heck am I doing here? I mean, you got Steve Lewis. I mean, he's pushed midgets backwards more than I've run them forwards. And anyway, but it's really an honor. And then as I got thinking about it, I'm sitting here going, I have put a lot into this industry, but I've done it because I wanted to do it. It was fun. And tonight, one of my midgets is running at Lincoln Park in Indiana, USAC Midget Week. And they'll be racing the rest of the summer before they come out to the West Coast. But anyway, this is a real pleasure, and I'm totally honored to be in this group with Jimmie Vasser and Jimmie Johnson. Again, like I say, what the hell am I doing here? But anyway, it's really a wonderful night, and thanks to all my family who made the trek up here to Northern California. One last thing is, in 1992, I was forbidden to drive race cars because of it was so treacherous in those days. And my dad said, no deal. And he died young of lung cancer. And about 25 years after he passed away, I came up here and did a 3-day barber school racing, and I was 52 years old, and I was running up towards the front with all these young people, if you don't mind me saying it. and I never looked back from then. I got bit by the bug, and boy, did I get bit. But anyway, I had a great time at this racetrack over the years, and I've come back to the place I started. And again, thank you very much, and thanks to the West Coast Stock Car Hall of Fame. Thank you for this honor.
By the way, if you have family members that couldn't join us here tonight at Sonoma, you can let them know that if they go to the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame.com website page, they can watch the event free on our live stream, which is going on right now, courtesy of Kenny Shepard and the gang doing all of our audio video. So it's a great opportunity for them to see it all. All right, next up to the stage, please welcome from Toyota Racing Development, Mr. Andy Graves.
Good evening. I'm truly honored to stand here to induct one of my closest and best friends, Jimmie Vasser, into the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame. But first, I'd like to congratulate the entire class of 2024, but especially two of my other good friends, Calvin Wells III and Jimmie Johnson. Congratulations, guys. You're legends, and it's well earned. I'd like to also congratulate the 2024 Heritage Class inductee, Steve Lewis. Steve owned one of the most prolific USAC midget teams, and he and his 9 racing team claimed 10 USAC national championships. I was really fortunate in 1990 to turn wrenches on Steve's famous white number 9 with Stan Fox and Bob East. Congratulations, Steve. James Vasser Jr., Jimmie, JV. We met for the first time in December 1999 at Sebring, Florida, at a kart test when I just went to work for Chip Ganassi and his 4-time kart championship organization after spending the previous 9 years and 4 championships at Hendrick Motorsports in the NASCAR Cup Series. Chip wanted to return to Indy, and he asked me to try to help make that possible without too much interruption with the kart team. When Chip introduced me to Jimmie, Juan Pablo Montoya, and the race engineers at the track, we were up in the lounge of one of the haulers, and he informed everyone at that point that they were in fact returning to the Indy 500, and that he had just hired me, an ex-NASCAR crew chief, to help lead the way and be team manager. After everyone broke up, and of course everyone was excited that they were getting ready to go back to the Indy 500, and as everyone funneled out of the lounge, Jimmie stopped, shook my hand, and told me, "Well, we're getting ready to see what you're made of. Don't F this up." Obviously, from that point, our relationship started and grew immensely over the next 6 months and during the month of May. I love him like a brother. Jimmie's career in motorsports has been extremely diverse and wide-ranging. He started racing with his father when he was 6 years old and became 3-time national quarter midget champion. After graduating high school, he attended the Jim Russell Driving School and then moved into the SCCA Formula Ford Racing Series. Jimmie found early success, winning the 1986 SCCA Formula Ford National Championship and then the 1990 Formula Atlantic East-West Challenge. Jimmie got his opportunity to break into kart during the 1992 season and qualified for his first Indy 500 as the fastest rookie. It wasn't until he signed with Chip Ganassi Racing for the 1995 season that he would start to consistently be a contender for race wins. In 1996, Jimmie would win 4 races, including the U.S. 500 at Michigan to go head-to-head with the Indy 500, and then claim the overall season championship. From 1997 to 2000, he would be teammates with 2 little-known drivers when they entered the States, but when they left, everyone knew their names: Alex Zanardi and Juan Pablo Montoya. They were blindingly quick and won 3 more championships for Chip's organization. But let me share a little secret. It's one thing to have a championship driver. It's entirely different to have a championship driver in your organization who is selfless and always leads the organization in the correct direction, like a compass pointing the way. Jimmie Vasser is exactly that. Over and over, I have seen organizations that need that type of leadership out of a championship driver, and most of them never reach their full potential until they have that piece of the puzzle. I've seen it with Terry Labonte. I've seen it with Del Worsham. I've seen it with Matt Kenseth. And I saw it with Jimmie Vasser firsthand. Because of his unselfishness, his leadership, and being a great teammate. Not only did Jimmie have a wildly successful driving career, but he's put his leadership and mentorship skills to good use outside of the cockpit and continues to make a huge impact in motorsports today. Jimmie and his business partner, Kevin Kalkaven, won the 2013 Indianapolis 500 as owners of KV Racing Technology with Tony Kanaan. Then when Dave Wilson and I were looking for a new team to lead our Lexus RCF GT3 program in IMSA, after a couple of tough seasons and plenty of disappointments, I rang Jimmie to see if he had interest in taking that challenge on. All he could promise me, he said, was that he was going to keep moving the ball down the field until he came to a hurdle that he could not clear. Well, after 5.5 seasons, 13 wins, the 2020 IMSA GTD Sprint Cup Championship, and the 2023 IMSA GTD Pro Manufacturer, Team, and Driver Championship, Jimmie and his business partner, James Sully Sullivan, they still have the ball. They have built one of the strongest GT3 organizations in North America, and we are super lucky to have them part of the family. Jimmie calls right down the road here in Napa, his hometown, as he runs successful Toyota and Chevrolet dealerships and a successful winery, V12 Vineyards, with his sister Vicky. Jimmie, congratulations on your induction into the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame. It is well deserved, and I know Silver is looking down, extremely proud. I love you, brother.
Let's put the visor down. You don't know when it is or where it is, really. It's just racing.
Jimmie Vasser, born at Canoga Park, won the 1986 Sports Car Club of America Formula 4 Championship, and in 1992 was the runner-up Formula Atlantic points finishers, winning 6 times. Vasser moved to championship auto racing teams the following year, signing with Chip Ganassi Racing for the 1995 season. Kart's last American-born champion, Vasser won 9 times for CGR on ovals, road courses, and street courses, including the Kart Street Race in Queensland, Australia.
And here's the final corner as Jimmie Vasser lines up victory number 2.
Vasser twice finished 4th in the Indianapolis 500, but the Kart IRL split kept him away from the speedway during his prime years. His final victory for Team Rahal at Fontana, California, is Kart's fastest at an average speed of 197.997 miles per hour. Vasser was selected for the International Race of Champions and twice finished 4th at Charlotte Motor Speedway and Indianapolis. Vasser and Dallas businessman James Sullivan are the 2023 IMSA GTD champions, fielding Lexus's cars since 2019. Vasser, 67, operates Jimmie Vasser Toyota and Jimmie Vasser Chevrolet out of Napa, California.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm so honored. I'm not 67. I'm getting there, but I'm not 67. 58. Andy, you tripped me up there, but I didn't think I was going to. I thought I was going to get roasted because he's got a lot of he's got a lot of material on me that could have gone a different way, and I didn't expect him to go the Hallmark heartstring one, but that was awesome, buddy. I love you like a brother too. Thank you for doing this. This is such an honor. I want to thank Ken Clapp for doing what he does and called me on the phone. And I know I was the last guy. I tried to get to have lunch, but it was a great lunch that Ken and I had in Napa and just kind of bench racing. And he was telling me about this, and I'm just kind of stunned. I don't know if you saw the early picture of me, really young. It was a media center over there back when this is Sears Point to me. It's not Sonoma. And this was the first racetrack that I drove a real race car instead of a quarter midget. And that was 1984. It's hard to imagine it was 40 years ago. And I just can't believe what's gone on here. I guess the stewardship, I have to say, congratulations to the Smith family for what they've done here. This is amazing for the area, West Coast. Having grown up here, quarter midgets at Baylands, and just going to old San Jose Speedway, and it's just hard to imagine to see the video of the things that things of the past as you get farther and farther from the cockpit. You don't really think about those things, and was able to win a championship. I'm a one-time, not a seven-time. I'm a one-time, one and done. My girlfriend could probably attest to that. I thought I'd throw a joke in there, kind of get some laughter going, but sorry, Sherry. But it's just a great honor. I want to give a shout out to Phil Casey in the back there. Phil Casey's in one of the back tables. He's an inductee, 2022. He was my crew chief for 3 years when I was with Hayho Racing. My first opportunity in IndyCar was a gentleman named Jim Hayho, and he was a Northern California guy as well. And at Hayho, Phil was 3 years my crew chief before it kind of groomed me, and Phil taught me a lot when I left Hayho and went to Ganassi, and I owe a lot to Phil, and Phil's here. I hope you're feeling better, buddy. Love you guys. But this is just an amazing thing for me, and I want to give a shout out to old Table 21 over here. My family came up and came out. My sister, who's keeps me sane and on the straight and narrow, and TRD table back there. I know you got some more coming up, but it's a pleasure racing with you guys. We're still racing, and we're going to get more wins, and always learning from Andy. I was almost coming. Andy tried the hell and high water when Chip fired me when I still had a contract, which was, it happens in motorsports, but I wasn't performing. And Andy had said I had a couple of tough teammates, Zanardi and Montoya, and that's tough order. So I got kicked to the curb. I got my ass kicked. But second in the championship and third in the championship wasn't good enough. But so I got booted. But Andy was really trying to get me to be one of Chip. Then Chip fired me. He said, "How about you come drive one of my NASCAR cars?" And I thought long and hard about it, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to come back and kick Chip's ass. And that didn't work out too good. But probably the biggest mistake I made, I should have went to NASCAR, but I didn't, and the rest is history. But this is a great honor. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening, and just liven it up a bit. Thank you.
Jimmie, if it makes you feel any better, you don't look a day over 66. So take that comfortably back to the table. Okay, next up, please welcome to the stage the current NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series points leading team owner, Northern California Zone, Bill McAnally.
Ralph, I just got to say, go Niners, right? So, Ken, you've done it again. Packed house. It looks amazing. Congratulations. You put a lot into this. When I was asked to induct Eric Holmes, he has been very special for my organization, for me as a team owner. He is a racer's racer. He's a second-generation racer. His dad raced. He got the bug from his dad. And I'll tell you what, any racer that starts racing in street stocks, it's Stockton 99 Speedway, is a real racer. And Holmes caught my eye early on, even as a driver, competing against him. But he won in everything that he drove. Alan Beebe, he teamed with Alan Beebe, and he gave him the equipment and the funds to go after things. But he won in late models. He won in tour cars. Everything Eric Holmes drove, he would win because he puts the effort in it, and he's got the passion to be a winner. And he is just that. He won 15 times for me in the West, won 3 West championships, 2 for me and 1 for Alan Beebe. Kind of a funny story about that. Eric had drove for me a couple times when I started being an owner, a couple one-off races. I was doing promotions, and I wanted to make sure we had a full field. And I'm like, Eric, I got this old car. Will you start it? And it always wind up being up there and contending for the win in the oldest car that I had in the shop that nobody wanted to race. He came to me and said, Bill, can I rent that car for Phoenix? Alan will rent it from you. We want to go to Phoenix. We're running for the Tour Championship, but we'd like to run the one race at Phoenix. And so I put a deal together with Eric and Alan, put him in a car at Phoenix for one race. And he wound up, after that race, he did very good. I was working with Richard Childress at the time, developing a young driver, Peyton Sellers. Well, Eric wound up after that race buying that car from me, and he beat us for the championship that year in a car that nobody in my shop wanted to race. So I knew he was special, very special. Through the years, he brought a crazy blonde cowgirl to the races. Lauren DeBoer showed up, who is now Lauren Holmes, the mother of Macy, and they've been part of our life. Eric, like I said, won 2 championships. Another young driver that came along and won 2 championships for him was Todd Gilliland, who has now married Eric's daughter, Marissa, and they're doing great. Todd's racing Cup. But I'll tell you, Marissa and Todd, whether a girl or a boy, I want a contract for that kid, because Gilliland blood and Holmes blood, that kid's going to be a driver. There's no doubt in my mind. Not at all. But Eric, you've earned this. You've got the passion. You are a racer. You deserve to be up here. You deserve to have this ring and be in the hall. Congratulations. Come on up, Eric.
We needed a victory for this Napa Toyota team, and we finally got it tonight.
Eric Holmes is a second-generation competitor who followed his father, Steve, into racing at Stockton 99 Speedway. Holmes, from Escalon, California, began racing karts at age 8, winning races and a pair of championships. He drove an occasional stock kart race at age 17, and after a season working on West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Famer Ernie Irvin's NASCAR Xfinity team on the East Coast, then began his touring career with West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Famer Alan Beebe. The pair won the 2006 NASCAR West title using one car and one engine, while also finishing second in NASCAR Elite Southwest Series late model points. Holmes joined West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Famer Bill McAnally's potent Toyota team, repeating as champion the same season and becoming a 3-time titleist in 2010. In the West Series, Holmes won 17 times with 59 top 5 and 78 top 10 finishes.
Eric Holmes emerges from the Napa Toyota.
Holmes, 49, remains with the McAnally organization as its driver coach and spotter for BMR's driver development program.
Well, thank you. They got my age right at least, so I'm not 10 years older than that. But no, I just want to thank you, everybody that's here. It's a huge honor to be inducted in this. It's something back, I think, 2010, Alan Beebe was inducted, and ever since I've been coming to these. So it's a great honor. Thank you, Ken Clapp. I've known Ken since probably I was 5 years old, racing at, going to Stock 99, racing Stock 99. Congratulate all the other inductees. Jimmie Johnson, he probably doesn't remember me, but I remember being in New York City with him, his first championship and my first championship, and getting to sign his championship helmet. That was a special moment for me, and so I thank him for that, being such a nice guy and allowing us all to do that. I mean, from there, there's so many people that when you come up here and do something like this over the years, there's hundreds of people I want to thank. I'm just going to go through a little list. I got to start with my grandparents, who are no longer with us, but my Grandpa Ralph got my dad and my Uncle Phil into racing, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here today racing and still involved in this. My Grandpa Holmes for giving us a dairy farm to learn how to drive on the dirt roads and back roads, and a shop and tools to work on those race cars in the early years. My mom for filming those races and giving me a video to learn from and watching what mistakes I made and what I did. I love you. You're always a great follower of mine, and just always had my back on that. From there, I grew up in a little tiny town called Escalon, California, and not a lot of people know that, but there's times I feel like the whole town supported me, from tires, the little metal, the bolts, the pizzas, the beer and sodas, just everybody that ever was a part of my team, crew members, sponsors. There's some here that I haven't seen in 20 years, and it's been nice just rekindling those relationships. From there, I got to thank Alan Beebe, who gave me my biggest shot of all. I mean, without Alan, I would have never made it at all. And he's a first-class guy, great car owner, and he's like a dad to me, and I appreciate everything he ever did for me. Jeanette, Mark, Paul, Alan, Carol, all of you, you did a lot for me, and you'll never know how much that meant to me. From there, moving to Bill McAnally. Like I said, I waited for years. I called Bill a lot. I remember trying to get the opportunity to drive for that Napa car and never got it. And finally, we bought that car from him and kicked his ass with it, so he had to hire me. So I'll never forget, he called me. We were at Toyota All-Star Showdown, and he said he signed Toyota. Toyota wanted to put somebody to come win a championship for him, and it was high pressure, but, man, I loved it. We went out, won our first race together, won the championship, won another. I feel like we should have won a few more, but, Bill, thank you. It's an honor just to still work with you. I appreciate that opportunity, spotting for you, working with your young drivers. It's been an honor. And from that, I just got to thank my family, my dad, my mom, everybody. Without you, I'd never be here. My kids. My daughter, Macy, who just graduated 8th grade. I kind of missed it last week being in Portland. So congratulations on that. My daughter, Marissa, Todd. Man, I just think the world of you, too. Thank you for – I'm almost a cup driver now, motorhome driver. But I appreciate that. I love doing that. It's probably the funnest thing in my life right now is driving that motorhome for me guys. I love it. My wife for standing behind me, with me, going to the races, always has my back. That girl has my back no matter what. I love you. I appreciate everything you've done for us and the family. And, man, I can't name everybody, obviously, but everybody that's played a part, big, small, whatever, I appreciate you. I love the memories. I hope you had as much fun as I had. And I know there's a lot of young races here racing at Madera Speedway. I know Kenny brought some young racers. Man, you guys just, a little advice, just enjoy it, man. It goes fast, really fast. Enjoy the good times, even the bad times. Some of the bad times are my favorite times to look back and cherish. Look back and see all the people that are supporting you. When you're in it, you don't realize what's going on. You're just focused on the next race and winning. So to all young racers, enjoy that. Have a great time doing it. And I appreciate, like I said, everybody. And everybody, I got to say, everybody from NASCAR. I got this great picture of Mike Helton putting a ring on my finger. He's the only guy that's ever put a ring on my finger. But I got a great picture of him putting a ring on my finger. And, I appreciate it. And I dropped my Sharpie. All these young kids nowadays don't ever have a Sharpie on them. Don't forget the Sharpie. Every young driver at McAnally's never has a Sharpie. I'm loaning them. So, like I said, appreciate everybody. Thank you for the night, and let's go racing.
So don't forget now, Eric, when you sign the next autograph, you got to add HOF, Hall of Famer, on there. Please welcome to the stage now a member of our class of 2022 here at the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame, Mr. Brendan Gaughan.
Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate it. First, what an amazing night for West Coast stock car racing. It's not many people think of West Coast, but you have a room with Mike Helton and Steve O'Donnell and Steve Phelps and all the main guys from NASCAR. It's amazing to see them come and support West Coast stock car racing, and we appreciate it because there's been days that West Coast stock car racing was McAnally barely held it together for a while. So we appreciate having all of them here, and of course the whole crew. Brian Flynn now in charge here at Sonoma. What a beautiful building you have to thank you, to host this dinner in. It's amazing to be here. And then, of course, all the other inductees, Jimmie, West Coast Stock Car Hall of Fame. He never raced on the West Coast. I don't know. But, no, I got to give him a hard time. But, all the inductees tonight, Cal, Jimmie, Dick Cobb is who I'm here, of course, for. And Eric. How many NASCAR guys now has Bill McAnally got West Coast Stock Car Hall of Fames? Bill, how many you got now? Isn't there like 4 now? I think he's got like 4 drivers for Bill McAnally that have won Hall of Fame for him. And himself, 5. So, thank you, though. It's an honor to be here and introduce a man that, honestly, in stock car racing, if I had not come across Dick Cobb, I would not have become a NASCAR stock car driver. Honestly, Dick was, many people from the East Coast may not know the name, but on the West Coast, if you raced anywhere up and down the West Coast, Mesa, Tucson, not Irwindale wasn't there back then, but any of the speedways back in the day, the name Dick Cobb was synonymous with winning. There was one year in Mesa Marin, he raced 35 times at Mesa, had 34 top 5 finishes when he won there. And anybody that raced at Mesa remembers that was a tough as nails racetrack, and Dick Cobb was able to put that stuff together. He was a true legend for West Coast stock car racing. I, as many people know, did not come from the NASCAR world. I came from the off-road world, didn't really know a lot about NASCAR. Walker Evans, thank God for me, he started racing a little series called the California Super Trucks, which, of course, turned into the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. And when I graduated college, he said, come drive these trucks. But even I heard the name Dick Cobb in Las Vegas. If you were growing up in Vegas, had anything to do with racing, it didn't matter if it was desert or anywhere, the name Dick Cobb you had heard of. And for me, I graduated college, and I came home, and Walker wanted me to go drive stock cars. And Wayne Otten will remember the test well. I'm just going to drive a truck. It seemed easy to me. Just drive a truck. It stays on the ground. 4 wheels don't come off the ground. Hey, I like this. It felt great. But in order to go do it, I had to learn how to drive something. So we went and we found some powder blue old, thing was ugly. I'm sorry. Wolfenstein, I love you if you're here tonight. I haven't seen you, but it was another off-road or another famous West Coast guy named Jim Wolfenstein's old chassis that Dick Cobb had built. And I couldn't tell you how to turn left. I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't understand it. And they sent me to a place called Richard Petty Driving Experience. Mr. Flynn, thank you. And Dick Cobb was the chief instructor. And they had told Dick that they had never done a racing experience there. And they were going to have me do a racing experience. And so Dick said, put the guy in front and he'll slow down. He won't be able to stay in front of you. And I just turned left and drove away from the guy. I didn't know. And after that, Dick hired me as a chief driving instructor for Richard Petty Driving Experience out in Las Vegas. And that was what I used to skirt some NASCAR rules about driving on racetracks. I did more laps for the Richard Petty Driving Experience on racetracks than I ever should have done. And if it wasn't for Dick's guidance, teaching me how to do these things, teaching me what to do, how to get around, honest to God, I wouldn't have done anything. I mean, there's a great story my spotter, Bill Holbrook, tells of one of the first nights I went to drive the late model. I was so slow, it was embarrassing. Like, I had no clue what a lap time was. It was just us testing. What's a lap time? Who cares, right? I mean, it's just drive. And I was so slow, Dick was like, this ain't going to work. And my spotter grabbed him and said, hey, you get in the thing, drive it, show him how fast it'll go, and he'll catch you. Now, if anybody ever met Dick Cobb, I'm a midget in 35 states. I'm not very tall. Dick Cobb was 6'6"? It really doesn't work very well, does it? Dick got in that race car, and he was like 2 seconds faster than me. And I went, wow, that's how fast it'll go. And I went out, and I beat Dick by like 0.3 of a second. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Dick is the one that gave me the confidence to do all these things. Dick is the one that did these things for not just me. Kurt Busch is in this room tonight, and Kurt got his start kind of with Dick Cobb. Kyle Busch, you don't have a Kyle Busch, a Kurt Busch, a Brendan Gaughan in NASCAR if it wasn't for the likes of a guy like Dick Cobb to bring us up. And the only regret I have is that we were not able to get Dick inducted into this Hall of Fame before he passed away about a year and a half ago. Year and a half ago? 6 months ago? Yeah. So, Dick was a dear friend. He ended up working at the South Point Hotel for the last 15 years of his life. And I'm honored to say that I got to spend a lot of time with Dick Cobb. And it's awesome to see tonight his entire family is here. His son Ricky, all of his grandkids are here. His wife is still here with us. And everybody that many, many friends in this room tonight, Mike and Mike Ray and Mike Daniel and Brian Kaiser, all these guys that on the West Coast, this means something to. And to see West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame next to the name of Dick Cobb, it is unbelievably my honor to introduce Ricky Cobb, his son, to accept this behalf on Dick Cobb.
Las Vegas, Nevada, Dick Cobb.
Dick Cobb, a native New Yorker, moved to Las Vegas in 1968 at age 20. As driver, car builder, crew chief, driving instructor, and mentor, Cobb's racing career spanned 45 years. Cobb won 3 Sportsman late model stock car championships at the old Craig Road Speedway, a quarter-mile paved track in North Las Vegas. Following the track's closure, Cobb won the Premier Division title at the old Mesa Marin Raceway in Bakersfield, California. He captured 4 NASCAR Super Late Model Championships at the 3/8 Mile Bull Ring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, as well as the 2000 NASCAR Sunbelt Region title. Cobb mentored a lengthy list of Las Vegas drivers, as well as assisted West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame inductee Brendan Gaughan's transition from off-road to NASCAR competition. Cobb, 75, passed away in May of 2023.
Well, first of all, I wish, of course, he was here accepting this award. He very well deserved it. My dad, the thing that was special with my dad is, he raced, he was a winner, he had a passion, he wanted to win every single race he was in. But, man, he was known for helping everyone else. That's what he did. He went to the track to win with his equipment, but if there was a driver that needed something, he would hand him the key and say, go to the shop and get it, whatever it was. I know that if he was here, he would be very pleased and happy that all of our family is here over there as well. The thing with my dad too, when he got started in racing in the late 60s, early 70s, he didn't know anything about racing. When he heard about a racetrack that was opening up, Craig Road Speedway, and he said he went out there and watched a race, and he said, I can do that. I can do that. So he bought some old car, stripped it down, put a roll cage in it, and went out there and won the race. See, that was just him. But I know that throughout the years he won a lot of championships. I think actually it was 10. It was mentioned 8 in the program, but it was 10. But there's a few too that were and he wouldn't come up here and say that. Yeah, I know he wouldn't, but he deserved it. There was a couple that were taken away from him. Not. Well, yeah, I won't get into that. but he loved racing on the West Coast. He actually moved to the West Coast from New York. Could not handle the cold weather. Said he wanted to be where there's sunshine. But then he found out about the tracks in California, and he just every weekend. I know I was at the racetrack when I was 5 days old. That was my first time at the racetrack. Every weekend after that, I was at the racetrack. When he heard about all the tracks in California, Saugus Speedway, Orange Show, Mesa Marin, El Cajon, he just hit all of them that he wanted to. And if he didn't win, he was in the top 5. So I know that he would want to thank several people that are here. Craig Hugh, he helped out huge. Joey Mancarey, Brendan, of course. When my dad got older, he didn't want to get out of racing, but he insisted on helping whoever he could that had the passion to race. I'd throw some names out there, but I'd be here all night. But anyway, I know that he would be very proud and very happy that he received this award. Again, he deserved it. And thank everyone here for being here.
Please welcome to the stage now the president of Toyota Racing Development, Mr. David Wilson.
Thank you and good evening. Shout out to Eric, Jimmie with a Y, 7-time. What a special night. Hi, Cal. You ready to do this? Buckle up. So let's start by winding the clock back a little bit. Some 35 years ago, fall of 1989, I packed all of my earthly possessions into the back of a 12-foot Ryder rental truck, and me and my Army buddy drove cross-country from New Jersey to the Promised Land, Southern California. I had just been offered a job by the late off-road motorsports Hall of Famer, Drino Miller. He was running this scrappy little engine in SoCal Speed Shop known as TRD, Toyota Racing Development. My first 2 assignments as a young engineer who knew nothing were to provide engineering support to Dan Gurney and his All-American Racers and Cal Wells in Precision Preparation Incorporated, aka PPI. Now, mind you, those were heady days for Toyota, because with Gurney in sports car racing, PPI and off-road racing, the combination of those legends really put Toyota on the map from a motorsports perspective in this country for the very first time. And whereas I worked with Dan and the AAR through the late 90s, I ended up on and off and on again with Cal Wells, and have been working with him ever since. And I've had the unique and fascinating opportunity to bear witness to the evolution of a Hall of Famer. A couple of years ago, I had the great honor to induct Ivan Stewart, legendary Toyota PPI racer, into the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. Pretty straightforward. He's the Iron Man. I mean, That's all you need to know. Good looking, humble, working class racing hero, right? End of story. Cal, on the other hand, is no less a legend, but man, he's complicated. 35 years ago, the Cal Wells that I knew was part Roger Penske, part Bobby Knight, and part Jim Jones. You know, the Kool-Aid guy? He was an off-road racing prodigy that changed forever the way you would do battle in the desert. Nobody before or since has equaled that. TRD Cal and his band of evil geniuses built machines that were as much Formula One cars as they were off-road racing trucks. Some days I still want to crank up 016 and see what damage we could do with that special race car. But Cal was also this fantastic character. A character that knew not a whole lot about humility, that knew no social boundaries, and who trafficked in information like precious commodities. Now, that still hasn't changed. He built PPI's Paragon-esque motorsports racing facility in Rancho Santa Margarita, California. Hands down the finest racing facility west of the Mississippi, if not the entire country for its time. His team members were devotees who would run through brick walls for him, and that was pretty much expected. He was famous for calling his lieutenants, this is before text messaging, for calling his lieutenants at all hours of the day or night. He was Gordon Gekko in that scene from Wall Street, on the beach before the sun is up with his brick phone. Money never sleeps, pal. Certainly, it seemed Cal never slept. Allegedly, his executive assistant kept his schedule, his calendar, a 24-hour calendar every day in 15-minute increments. I'm quite certain you could trace the conception of his children to that calendar. Now, whether he needed 15 minutes or not, I won't go there. Cal's empire grew and expanded. IndyCar, Toyota Atlantic Racing, and of course NASCAR. And then his empire contracted. And Cal evolved and adapted. In my mind, this is the period that truly qualifies him to be here in this room to be lauded. For Cal's success in life not only came to be defined by a racing box score that's phenomenal, but by the emergence of a more self-aware, humble, and fully formed human being. The Cal that I've grown to love like a brother is the person that we're honoring tonight. He's the Cal that attends your kids' graduations, weddings, your family's funerals. He has found a level of grace and humility, and he wears it well. Mind you, he still has some issues with social boundaries, but okay. So it's with a tremendous amount of pride and affection that I present to you Cal Wells III.
I got to flip the rearview mirror down and look forward from what I've done well or what I haven't. I've got to learn from the things that I've done that have been successful and all the screw-ups I've made, and then just hope that I've learned enough to apply the smart things. And that's always the big deal, knowing the right from the wrong.
Calvin Cal Wells III has been at the forefront of the motorsports industry for more than 40 years as entrepreneur, builder, team owner, executive, and consultant. In July, Wells became the CEO of Legacy Motor Club, the NASCAR Cup Series team. It marks Wells' third foray into NASCAR Cup competition. His PPI Motorsports team competed in 7 seasons and 260 races winning at Martinsville Speedway and Darlington Raceway with Ricky Craven. He then joined Michael Waltrip Racing, eventually rising to Vice President, Chief Operating Officer. Wells, with Toyota, formed PPI Motorsports in 1979 and dominated off-road truck racing, winning 88 races, including 3 Baja 1000s and 11 Baja 500s, with drivers Steve and Rod Millen, amongst others. Wells, 68, is a 2020 inductee into the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Good evening. Ken, wherever you are, thank you so much for putting this together. What an amazing gathering of icons. When Ken gave me the call to say that well, first that I've been nominated, but that I actually am now being inducted, I couldn't believe it. As Mr. Malloy said earlier, what am I doing here? I look at the list of extraordinary contributors to the sport of motorsport, and it's so humbling to even be in their shadow. It's just amazing. One of the things about motorsport that I think keeps us all around is it's one of the few athletic endeavors that super collides the extraordinary abilities of the athlete with the tenacity, competency, and brilliance of those that work on the stuff that rusts. And it creates a family environment that is just like no other. When I started in racing, I tried, my brother, David, who's here tonight, thank you, was extraordinary in sports, as my dad. He was lettered in 4 sports in the same year in college, all that stuff. I was horrible at it. But one of the things that was neat, there was a guy down at the end of the street that we lived in Tustin, California. I didn't have my driver's license yet. And this was a while ago, because this was accurate. Unlike Jimmie's, it says 67. I am 68. So this was several decades ago. And he had a truck, an off-road truck, driven by a guy who used to put curbs in for Walker Evans back when Walker was building houses before he actually started driving as a career. Started his own Walker Evans Racing. And I just fell in love with it. It was a truck originally built by Bill Strop and Sons. And Bill Strop and Associates then. And he invited me to go up to Signal Hill. And I went up to look at, this is where Bill Strop had his place at the time. And you just saw this hallway of red, white, and a kind of a metal flake blue that were iconic. Just unbelievable amounts of vehicles that they either ran as factory Fords or as customer cars. And I just fell in love with it. So my first race was actually at the Mid 400 back at the old gun club, which Brendan, who has now slipped out, let's take special note that Brendan Gaughan has now left the building. But we were able to, again, I didn't have my driver's license yet, and I absolutely fell in love with it. The next race I went to, I did have my driver's license, was a Baja 500. And for a few of you that have been involved in off-road racing, it is also very, very unique. And each discipline that I've been blessed to be a part of, from, again, off-road to NASCAR to IndyCar to the support series around them to all sorts of different stuff, a little bit of Formula One, a lot of different things. My first real exposure, and what's unique about off-road, particularly if you are, if you make the commitment to go on for 2 or 3 days and do something like the Baja 500. And this was the Baja 500 back when Mexico was very different than it is now. Really, really an amazing journey in motorsport. And we were at a little place down south of San Felipe, but north of Portositas. And there's these graded roads that are really, really impressive coming out of over the Three Sisters. And very few of you would even know what this is. Jimmie would know. He's done it. But once you get past Gonzaga Bay and you start coming up the coast, and again, West Coast Motorsport Hall of Fame, Stock Car Hall of Fame, off-road is West Coast, it's Baja. The thing about, and where I knew I was hooked for the rest of my born days, was listening to Parnelli Jones, who we just lost, driving a Bronco with Bill Strop. And it was a tubular space frame thing that Dick Russell had built. And you could hear the thing crackling miles away as he was grappling for traction. It was just, and the hair would come up on your neck as you could just hear the thing searching to grab whatever grounds there were. And of course, Parnelli Jones there is only one. And extraordinary athlete. Mario Andretti had it right. And you could hear this thing coming at night with the lights beaming all over, and they were swaying back and forth as he would pitch the car back and forth. It was 88 inches long, so it was very short. And it was just breathtaking. I mean, you couldn't replicate all those senses at the same time, visual, hearing, and then when the thing would pound by, I was pitting for him, pouring gas along with 90 other people that Bill Strop had down there, and it was a breathtaking experience. And that led me to support entrepreneurial racers that would build an off-road vehicle instead of having a boat in like a Grand Banks in Newport Harbor or something. And it allowed me to really embrace people that are so dedicated and put every waking moment into their chosen profession. One thing led to another, and when Mickey Thompson started the Off-Road Championship Grand Prix in Southern California, I was blessed to meet the folks at Toyota. And that was in 1982. And that changed the course of my life forever. Through that relationship and the wonderful people there, not only racing off-road, but then be able to gravitate towards, again, Toyota Atlantic, IndyCar, NASCAR. And again, each discipline is so unique. But one thing that's a common thread are the people and their passion for competition, their passion for partnership, and their passion for friendship around their chosen profession. And that's where I believe all of us in this room are so blessed, because we've created relationships that are irreplaceable, that extend beyond our family, our biological family, to not only everyone in this room, but to the passionate participants all around the world. Yeah, I did a little bit of consulting for Gene Haas for a while when he first jumped into Formula One, and it was a whole new world for me. And I'd done some travel, but nothing like that. And it was so interesting, no matter what the languages were, that unfortunately I only speak one language, but that one not very well. But with the listening and seeing the passion, not only of the fan but of the participants, no matter where they were born, around the world, the one single focus was on competition with people that they also respected and enjoyed. And that's why I feel so blessed to be here tonight with everybody. And I can't thank you enough for the induction. And I can't thank Toyota enough for providing a 42-plus year opportunity and still counting. And all the wonderful people from my family and my friends and those that helped when my brother and I built cars in the garage 100 years ago to, well, not 100, but 50-plus years ago to now. So thank you very much. Tremendous honor. Have a great one.
Cal, I've known you a long time, and all the stats and accolades are well documented, but it's great to see your passion hasn't dimmed at all. It's tremendous. Congratulations and enjoy. Please welcome to the stage now another guy who hasn't lost his passion at all for racing. Two-time Rolex 24-hour Daytona class winner, Mr. Boris Said.
Hello. So it's a huge honor for me to be here. I mean, to be in a room with this many cool people in the world of motorsports, from drivers to team owners to everybody, it's pretty cool. And I've never been in this building before. I mean, I've been racing here. I've been racing myself for 38 years. And I've been coming to this track since 1988 was the first time here. And we're sitting in one of the most exciting corners. And I can remember so many times under caution at the end of a NASCAR race, being hot and tired, watching these people barbecue and could smell it, and seeing them drinking and having fun. I was like, man, that would probably be pretty fun to be in here. So it's kind of cool to be here finally for a change. Thank you, Carolyn Bechtel and Gary, for asking me to do this. I didn't know Joe Huffaker Sr. really that well. You know, I raced for his son, who was part of our Trans Am team when we won the championship in 2002. Joe Jr. built our engines. We won 9 of 12 races. They were unbelievable. And when they asked me to do this, I started reading about his father. I go, I really don't know much about him. How can I do this? And after reading about him, you know, he was born in 1927. In 1950, he said, I'm going to go racing. He built his own cars. Who does that now? And he took his own cars in the 50s and he ran under a pseudonym, Harry Hotcake. That's what he entered cars for. I don't know why that is, Joe, but I'm curious. But I like the name. And from there, in the 60s, he decided to build his own Indy cars. You know, he made history by the Speedway. Bobby Unser drove the first Offie turbo-powered car at the Indy 500. And from there, he started coming up with these designs where he had liquid-filled suspension. Porsche came to him and he built a 2-engine Indy car, you know, without any computers, without any computer modeling. He was just probably the most innovative, free-thinking spirits of the time, I think. You know, I'll just put 2 engines on an Indy car. I'm sure Roger Penske would try that right now. But an amazing guy. And he went from there, after his Indy stuff, he started building sports cars. And that's where I kind of knew him. I remember the Pontiac Fieros, you know, running in IMSA. Those were really cool cars. And I started in '88, and that's when I just started seeing the end of it and took an interest in it. But he was building these really cool cars. He was running in, I remember, in the Spice Lights cars, winning races in IMSA. And it's got me thinking tonight when I was reading about it, I'm like, man, I was born in the wrong era. I mean, I just think that was the coolest time when guys could just think of something and build it. No computers, no nothing, just weld it. And the rules, I don't really know what the rules are. I wish we could change a lot of those rules. And even this weekend I'm racing NASCAR. I was going to ask Steve Phelps if they had, maybe you could score an over 60 class on Saturday. Maybe you could have a little something for the old guys. But it's been an honor. And Joe, your dad, I mean, he was an amazing, amazing guy. And I'm sure he's proud of you because from what I know of you, you know, you built some of the best engines, driven a lot of your cars. One of the things I liked about you the first time I ever saw you is you got out of this little Mini Cooper. And I'm like, that's a cool little Mini. And this guy that's 6'6" gets out of the thing. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Because with my height and your height, you know, racing is a game of it's for short guys. So it's not that good for tall guys. But it's an honor to be here. And Joe, I think your dad's probably shining down, super proud of what you've done in your career, and I'm sure you're super proud of him. So on behalf of everyone here, we want to bring you up and accept the award to induct your dad in the Hall of Fame, Joe Huffaker Jr.
The late Joe Huffaker, driven by his passion for racing, began building hot rods as a teenager in the late 1940s. Shell Cavalli hired Huffaker in 1958 to run a competition department for British racing car distributors in San Francisco, which became North America's largest race car manufacturer. 3-time Indianapolis 500 winner Bobby Unser made history at the Speedway in a Huffaker chassis that carried the first turbocharged Offie engine. the Huffaker's team's cars won 12 Sports Car Club of America national championships. Huffaker won the 1982 Trans Am Championship with Elliott Forbes Robinson and the 2000 Trans Am title with Brian Simo. Huffaker entries are credited with 14 Trans Am victories. Huffaker retired in 1991, turning the company over to son Joe Jr., a 10-time SCCA national champion. The late Joe Huffaker.
Thanks, Boris. Hey, thank you very much. I'm up here really proud of my dad. I want to thank the Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame, and I had a great lunch with Richard and Ken Clapp. But thanks for the inducting my dad, and he deserves it. He started out. My dad has passed now. He's passed in February of 2022, and my mom shortly after, a year later, February of 23. But he started out in Indiana, Terre Haute, Indiana, and built his own car at about 18, and out of junkyard parts, and he drove it from Terre Haute all the way out to California, and met my mom at College of Marin, which is in Santa Fe, or Corte Madera. And I grew up in Novato, just as over that hill, and that's where they passed, and they did it in their own way. And I was taking care of them at that time. But he did such innovative and visionary work that I just grew up thinking all dads go to Indy, but they don't. So it's just one of those things. I just watched him do this. I never got to go to Indy with him, but I was that big. They used to call me Little Joe, but that changed. So, but yeah, I learned everything that I could learn from my dad, and I worked 50 years at Huffaker Engineering, and I retired in about 4 years ago. Just the shop's right up the hill here, and it's right here at Sears Point. In fact, we were the first tenant here, 1986. And so my dad didn't go very far. He was in Northern California. He was a West Coast guy all the way. And he was focused on it. He enjoyed it. Boris talked about Harry Hotcake, which was his AKA when my mom, who didn't want him to go racing, he would just do it anyway, but under Harry Hotcake was his name. And so, but he did a lot of testing in some of the cars here. You know, back when I was that big, we went to Katati. My dad raced at Candlestick. We did Vacaville. We did all the small road race courses, all sports cars. And but he was not only a good innovation guy, but he could, like Boris said, he could weld it all together. Just think about it. Do a drawing, build Indy cars, go to Indy, get 3 in the show. You know, back in -- had A.J. Foyt, had Bobby Unser, had Dan Gurney, and some of the genies. The modified cars that ran at Seattle and Riverside. And those cars did well with those kind of drivers. And Dan Gurney drove one, and Pedro Rodriguez. But, you know, Indy was a special time. My mom hated that he was gone for the whole month. And like I said, I was about that big, so I was just starting to understand that stuff. But, you know, he did a good job. He did that liquid suspension special, which was when Shell Cavalli from the BMC building in San Francisco hired him. They had the MG 1100 special, which was, or sedan, which was a liquid suspension based car at chassis. And so Shell said, "Hey Joe, can we just do that on an Indy car?" And so he did it. And the first time he put it on the ground, it flattened right to the ground. And so he had to take the whole, re-engineer it and get to Indy, and got them all on the show, which was amazing. That was with Walt Hanskin, Pedro Rodriguez, and I've kind of seasoned up here. But we also did all the engines for all kinds of different series. And like Boris said, you know, we won Trans Am Series, we've won IMSA Series. We did lots of wins with people like Bob Earl in the car, and Boris drove to a championship with our engines. I heard Walker Evans' name come up here in the Toyota stadium truck events, and we were the guys that did his engines the year that he won, because I think he had somebody else do them before that. But we were into all kinds of different engines and all kinds of different series. But that's my dad. He was focused on that and did it through all his life. and he deserves this. So I appreciate the inductee for my dad. I'm very proud of him, and thanks, Dad. So.
Well, this next introduction is, or induction, is one we all knew was coming, just a matter of time, and tonight's the night. And to do the honors, please welcome up to the stage the head desert rat himself out of El Cajon, California, Gary Johnson.
I brought my glasses. Well, this is such an honor for me, and to see all my friends and racing and stuff here was just wonderful. But mainly, this started with my dad. Raced midgets in Balboa Stadium in San Diego before the war, and he turned into just a huge race fan. So, but after that, Uncle Sam wanted him to drive a tank across Europe, so he had to go do that. So, but never lost his love for racing. And it just grew to me, too. So we would go to Riverside and sit in turn 6. And I remember in the grandstands, he took the beer cooler and put it on my seat. And I go, where do I go? And he goes, you take a little car and go down under the stands. So I was under the grandstands in turn 6, playing with my cars, watching the cars go by. And I was hooked. You know, the noise, the cars going by so fast. And anyway, then I started Jimmie racing at 5 years old, and then he ended up winning his first championship at 7, which was amazing that it just came out. And then the Mickey Thompson Series, and our buddy Ralph here was announcing all of that. And then he ended up getting into a little super light in Mickey Thompson when he was a teenager, and Ralph was announcing that too. So then got to Chevrolet, and he's in the Chevy trucks racing against Cal. And I don't know if Cal ever remembers, but one time, I think Rod Millen wanted a raise, so he was talking to the Chevy team. So I went over and told Cal, I go, we'll just put Jimmie in your truck, we'll just switch. And Cal patted me on the back and says, Jimmie will never drive for me. It's okay. So anyway, then he also did the Chevy trucks in the Score Desert Series. And then on to the Busch Series, and then the Cup Series, 5 in a row nobody's ever done, and then 2 more to make 7. So I'm just so proud of Jimmie, that even though he did some crazy things to us in his life, like he won a race at the San Diego Stadium, and he ran up on stage and told 40,000 people, party at my house. And most of them came. There was beer cans for blocks, man. I don't know how these people found our house. So, but anyway, I'm just so proud of what Jimmie's turned into as such a man and a family man with his kids and stuff, and couldn't be prouder. But I want to tell a couple of funny stories. Like Jimmie and Jimmie Vasser were on the same team, and I was spotting for him at the 24 hours, and Vasser's yelling, we're on fire, we're on fire. I go, no, they're burning furniture down there in turn 3. They're okay. So, and then another one, the nicest guy I ever spotted for was Boris Sid. I drove his hauler to Mexico City and ended up spotting for him down there. And every time I cleared him, he'd go, thank you. I said, you're just the nicest driver I ever spotted for. And he's like, thank you, So... And what an honor to spot for you. So anyway, I'm just so proud of my son and all the friends we've made over the years and the people that have helped us along the way. So I'm just so happy to induct him. So.
Jimmie Johnson, El Cajon, California, is one of 3 competitors to win 7 NASCAR Cup Series championships sharing the record with Richard Petty and Dale Ernie.
We may never see anything like this in our lifetimes again.
The Hendrick Motorsports driver won a record 5 consecutive titles between 2006 and 2010. His 83 victories in 16 straight seasons ranks 6th among NASCAR Cup Series winners. Johnson drove the number 48 Chevrolet in 868 races, recording 232 top 5 and 374 top 10 finishes, while winning 36 poles. After ending his full-time NASCAR career, Johnson spent 2 seasons with the NTT IndyCar Series, posting 2 top 10 finishes. Johnson, 48, competed in the NASCAR Xfinity Series prior to his Cup career, recording 1 victory in 93 starts.
The first ever checkered flag at Chicagoland Speedway.
He began racing motocross events at age 5 and later won 6 off-road championships. Johnson was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2024.
What a run it's been. This is beyond my wildest dreams. And I thought Christmas morning in 1979 was special.
He is among the ownership group of Legacy Motorsports Club.
Thank you, everybody. That is what an honor to be here tonight and to have my first team owner and biggest fan, my dad, inducting me and bringing me in. Certainly didn't have a lot growing up, but my parents gave everything they could to me and my brothers. We were a racing family, essentially. As my dad pointed out, we have 3 generations of racers, starting with his father. My grandparents owned this little motorcycle shop in El Cajon called K&R Kawasaki, stood for Ken and Ruth. And that was really the starting point for me and my brothers, Jarrett and Jesse, and our journey into racing. So much was said on the screen and from my dad. I'm trying to skip through my notes here because I don't want to be too redundant. I know everybody's eager to get rolling. But as my dad pointed out, he introduced racing to me and my brothers. My dad did race a bit on his own, but more than anything, he was always working on race cars, and then eventually went to work for BF Goodrich Tires and their off-road programs while we still lived here in Southern California. Many people assume I cut my teeth at El Cajon Speedway, naturally, but that wasn't the case. I've never turned a lap, or never did turn a lap on the oval. I did run a go-kart around a little bit in the infield. But I did spend a bit of time in the grandstands. My dad was turning wrenches on John Deneen's number 22 late model, and I would try to sneak in the pits, and I'd always get thrown out because I didn't have the white pants on that were required to get in the pits. But I'd try, and then I'd just go have another corn dog or ice cream or something and sit in the stands. So that was my early introduction to stock car racing. It was a long and windy road to finally get into a stock car. And then there are so many people that I owe a great deal of thanks to along the way. Partners, sponsors, manufacturers, friends, team owners, family members. The list is very long, and I certainly wouldn't be here today without all those amazing people. But the interesting road that I was on growing up on the West Coast, racing everything from motorcycles, jet skis, stadium buggies, desert buggies, a Chevy Stadium truck, and even a trophy truck in Baja, really shaped me into the driver that I became in NASCAR. Stock cars are quite different. The first stock car race I was in ASA, I remember catching the car in front of me and I didn't know how to pass him. I just didn't know what to do. So there was a huge learning curve for me there to really grasp. But once I got an understanding of a stock car and what it takes to set one up, Brendan was talking about it earlier. Once that light bulb turned on, I was able to really get going and use my dirt background to really slide a stock car around that served me so well for all those years. Of course, my career in NASCAR and being able to drive the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports it was just insane success, and it's something that I never ever dreamed of. The first really insane and honestly the most impactful moment happened for me on the West Coast, which was my first NASCAR Cup Series win at California Speedway. of course, a home track. But to frame this up, I was an insecure rookie, handpicked by Jeff Gordon. The media felt like I was not worthy of the opportunity. And to make things even more tense, Jeff Gordon just won the championship in 2001 in all this equipment. And so needless to say, when I was taking that trophy in victory lane, I felt the pressure leaving my shoulders because I knew I'd be employed for at least another year. Another West Coast stock car memory to share is one that happened here on the track out the window. I forget the year exactly, but I do have one whopping road course win, and that was here. And I had a good day going. I ran second most of the day to Marcus Ambrose, but for whatever reason, he decided to save fuel heading up to turn 2, going uphill in a Cup vehicle, and couldn't get it restarted. We all know how that ended, and I have the trophy at my house. Thank you, Marcos. One other fond memory I have of this particular track is in the stadium days when I was racing the Super Lights. I went to my team owner, a guy named Jeff Bennett, and convinced him that if I could come to the Skip Barber driving school here, that I would learn some skills that I could take to my car racing, the off-road racing that I was doing. And he paid for it and brought me here, and I ran a Formula Ford. I actually ran 2 Formula Fords. The first one I crashed on the drag strip and stuck it under the Armco barrier. He wasn't really happy about that, but my first asphalt memory and experience was here at the Sonoma Raceway. I also want to give recognition and congratulate the other inductees and their families for this amazing honor here tonight. Some very special friends in Cal Wells and Jimmie Vasser, guys I've known a long, long time and have a lot of history with, and it is a true honor to go into the Hall of Fame with both of you tonight. And, getting to the end of this here, I've always had unwavering support from my parents, from my wife Shani, Evie, Lydia, and our now 5-year-old and slightly calmer Jack Russell Terrier, Charlie Meatball. My youngest daughter gave him the Meatball nickname. It's been an amazing journey racing stock cars, and I'm excited that, although I am 48, not 67 like Vasser, that I'm still behind the wheel occasionally. We'll run 9 Cup races this year and have a few on the West Coast to close out the season in Vegas and Phoenix that I'm very excited about. I'll be driving for our team, Legacy Motor Club. And being a team owner brings a whole new set of challenges that I'm thrilled to face. Yes, there will be peaks and valleys, but I'll continue to strive to conquer the team ownership landscape like I was able to do behind the wheel of a race car. And with all that, be on the West Coast for years and years to come racing. So what an honor. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you.
Dad forgot the story about the old flippin' win. Remember that one? Yeah, I know. It was Seattle. Jimmie was running that super light, Nature's Recipe on the side. I was doing the color on the ESPN broadcast with Bud Sports. And Jimmie's battling for the win there, and instead of Danny Sullivan's spin and win, this one decides to go end over end, lands on all 4 wheels, drives off to the win. And we do the interview, which he doesn't remember because he was knocked out. He was standing up, did the interview, but nobody was home. But anyway, that was a great moment. And I was on pit road for your win here, by the way. Yeah, I remember that when Marcus ran out. Okay, next up, the man who has fought valiantly to keep Calistoga, that great speedway, open. Please welcome Mr. Tommy Hunt to the stage.
Thank you for the introduction, Ralph. Am I Sorry for the confusion here. Okay, so let's get started. I'm here to induct Steve Lewis into the Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame. I'm proud to be doing that. Matter of fact, I'm honored to be doing that. Steve Lewis played a big part in my history for a long time. And as some of you know, he had probably, let me put it this way, you could call it an armada of 9 cars that he ran on a regular basis that were basically dominant during the period of time he was running. The West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame proudly recognizes worthy individuals with induction into the Hall's very select roster. Tonight, Steve Lewis will be added to this roster of deserving people. I am honored to have the opportunity to say a few words to recognize Steve's many accomplishments. Early in his lifetime, Steve Lewis became an avid fan of midget racing. He soon decided that he must own and participate with a car he owned. His involvement with Don Horvath led him to car builder and master craftsman Don Edmonds, who built his first midget, the Rev Master Special for Horvath. After experiencing the thrill of being involved with Horvath as a helper and mechanic, Steve purchased his first midget. The rest is history. Steve's 9 cars dominated the midget scene for many years, with the sport's top pilots winning race after race. Steve's midget teams were known for pristine equipment as well as professionally outfitted crews. Very simply, the 9-car teams established a high standard for other midget teams to try and duplicate. Steve and his midget teams were instrumental in the revival and continued success of the sport. During this period of time, Steve felt that he needed to develop a resource for manufacturers of racing parts and their prospective buyers to convene at. Soon the dream became a reality. Steve was responsible for the creation of the performance racing industry trade shows. These gatherings of racing parts manufacturers displaying their products were immediately considered a must-go for racers. This yearly event brought new credibility to racing globally, and the titans of the sport looked forward to attending on a regular basis. It is hard to comprehend the difficulty of producing and administering an event of this magnitude. Somehow, Steve gathered a staff of very competent people and personally organized them into a very efficient workforce. Steve's dreams became reality due to his hard work and commitment to excellence. We salute you, Steve, and welcome you as an inductee into the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame. Please join me on stage, Steve.
Born in Colton, Southern California, Lewis began attending midget races at the Orange Show Speedway and many drag races nearby. He attended San Jose State University and earned an MBA. Steve Lewis's 9 racing captured 10 United States Auto Club national championships over 29 years, driven by a who's who of open-wheel racing. Lewis's pearl white race cars appeared in 133 USAC midget victory lanes. Lewis launched the Performance Racing magazine and trade show in Orlando, Florida in 1986.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to thank Tommy Hunt for pitching in at the last minute because Kelly Telfer was going to kind of introduce me. And a few weeks ago, he had a little problem, and he's out of the hospital, and we have breaking news. He's doing really good. So that's very important to hear. We should think good about Kelly Telfer. And personally, it's a real honor to be here, especially this class. This is a top class. And for me personally, I'm a fan of a lot of what goes on here, and it's a real honor to be standing here. Also, I want to thank Mr. Ken Clapp for getting me into this. I don't know quite why he did that, but I want to thank him and the Stock Car program here in the Motorsports Hall of Fame for allowing me to be a part of this. It's an outstanding class of racing professionals who are being inducted this evening, and at this time I wish to acknowledge their contributions to the betterment of our beloved racing industry. All you guys have worked very hard, and you've made this industry better, and that's what's fun about this place. In this industry, we can all work have fun, have a few beers, and go down the road. But this is really special for me to be here. It's special to be here with this amazing class and this amazing group of people that's packed this room. Okay, for me personally, people gave their all to me that allowed me to achieve amazing results in racing and amazing results with producing the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show and the magazine. And we have a few people right here from the PRI that would totally devoted, worked hard every day to make that show happen, and I'm thankful for their hard work. I also want to acknowledge my lovely parents who in my early days kind of wondered what was going to happen. Bill and Joy Lewis and my wonderful brother Michael and my son Michael and my wonderful brother Jim, they are an inspiration for me. For some reason, I just wasn't normal. And what normal kids did my age, I just didn't do. I wanted to be around racing. And there was a man in town, my little town, Colton, California, named Archie Airy. And Archie Airy owned Archie's Garage, and sitting in the first stall was an A-fuel dragster with a 392 Chrysler fuel. And I'd go by Archie's Garage, I'd just look at that car, and one day Archie says, "Steve, will you go to the races with me?" Holy moly, I'm now going to the races with Archie Airy. Right there, if the time would have stopped, I would have been happy. So that we go to Fontana one Sunday, we go to Colton next Sunday, we go to Riverside. So every Sunday, I'm going to the races. Every Sunday, though, I would get up early, eat breakfast, and my mother said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to the library." Every Sunday, I went to the library, she thought, until the first quarter report cards came, and the grades did not represent the time I was studying. And that was a little problem I had to deal with, but we got through that. My parents had this lofty, wonderful goal for me to be in school, to be in college, and end up being something. But I had different ideas. I just didn't know quite how to do that. So instead of going off to college, I went to work for Economotors Volkswagen in Riverside, California, for a man named Joe Vitone, who ended up starting a little company called MP, Engineered Motor Products. And I went to work there as a mechanic's helper, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And while I was working there, I met John and Joe Horvath, who started a company called RevMaster, reconditioning Volkswagen engines. And Don Horvath was an up-and-coming young midget racer, racing primarily then in URA and once in a while in USAC. And in the USAC races, Don was mid-pack at best. He could win a URA race, but when we went to Ascot and there was Parnelli and Bobby Unser and Billy Cantrell and Johnny Morehouse and Alan Heath, it was a little bit different story, and we were mid-pack. The 1962 Thanksgiving Grand Prix, we went, and I'm the stooge, changing tires, getting ready, and we ran mid-pack in the semi. That's mid-pack in the semi. And he was dejected. After the race, we're going to load the car up in the trailer, put the fuel jugs in, and get ready to go. And this tall, red-headed man with a blanket under one arm came up to Don, came right up to him, eyeball to eyeball. I had no idea who this guy was. He says, "Horvath, are you tired of running in the semi-main?" And Don's eyes were kind of rolling around. He says, "I'll build a car for you that you can win with." That man was Don Edmonds, who was recently Rookie of the Year, 1956 Rookie of the Year, and he had run some super modifieds down at El Cajon Speedway, and he was working at that moment for Bill Thomas building the Cheetahs. And Don wanted to start his own business, and he looked at Horvath as an opportunity, because you always want to, if you're going to get somebody from the semi to win, you're going to sell cars. He built a beautiful midget RevMaster Offie, and Sonny Meyer did the engines, and Don did the chassis tuning. And in 2 years, in the seasons of 63 and 64, we won 8 main events, and Horvath got an opportunity to run in the 1965 Indy 500 as a result of that. So that I learned you want to have an engine guy involved in your program, and you want to have a chassis guy in your program, and get a good driver. And I saw that, And that's what we patterned our program after. Okay. I have another hour and a half. We can take. Now, remember I said it's the people. So I met Don Edmonds, and I listened and learned from Don. Sonny Meyer was doing the engines, and that was a magic time. And then in 1979, Don Edmonds called. I was at work, and Don called up and says, Lewis, he always called me Lewis. He says, Lewis, you've always wanted to be a car owner. You're now a car owner. Bring a check down here, and we're going to build you a little 4-bar Edmonds midget with an autocraft engine. And Edmonds told me, you don't know anything about racing, which was partly true, and I'm going to manage this program, and we're going to win races. So I went, took my check, and the first little midget was built, and we used an autocraft engine built by Ray Fitzpatrick and Bill Steiner, great guys, and we hired this skinny, thin little man from Janesville, Wisconsin, Stan Fox, and that changed everything. It changed me to some good, and Stanley was our first driver, and we did very well. And then the next era was Stanley and Bob East got together. Stanley was racing down in Australia, and they got together, and Bob wanted to start a midget racing program, building chassis, and Stan said, we'll get Lewis involved, which I had no idea that I was going to be involved. And so Stan Fox and Bob East got me involved with their program, and that's when we started to really get going good. And then Earl Gertie started building engines for us, and we hired our first employee, number 0001, Donnie Skinner, who is still now, he's working for the IndyCar team. And then we hired Kelly Drake in the later years. And when our lives really changed, a life-changing experience is when Ed Pink came on board in 1995 and said, I'll build you an engine that you could win races with. And he developed the Ed Pink Ford with a Yates head, and that engine went over 100 main events. 100 main events in a 10-year period. A very strong program. I would like now to acknowledge some people that did some work in the race cars and did some very good work. Our first champion, our first USAC champion, 1993, Stevie Reeves. Our second champion, 1995, Tony Stewart. Our third champion, 1996, Kenny Irwin Jr. Our fourth champion, fourth and fifth, Jason Leffler, 1998, 1999. 2000, Casey Kane. 2001, 2002, Dave Darlin. 2003, J.J. Yaley. 2004, Bobby East. Not bad for a kid in Colton, California that didn't get very good grades. Also, I want to finish here. I am finishing. I want to finish. The racing was fun, but I also got to enjoy going to work every day because I got to work with the finest, sharpest, best, hardworking people in the world that taught me so much how to produce trade shows. I knew nothing about trade shows until we brought these people on board. And we had a lot of fun producing that performance racing industry trade shows and the magazine. And I was just blessed to work with people of their caliber. I must close now. And I want to say thank you to everyone that's here tonight, everyone in racing, and thank you to all the people that let me achieve the dream that I kind of had when I was this little kid. When little kids have dreams, and I had this little dream to be involved in racing, and the people that I worked with gave me that dream, and I thank you. Okay? Thank you. I want to bring the Vice President here, Michael, up. She's important here. She could be in the picture too. Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, Tom. There was motion. No, me, Vice
Congrats, Steve. In case you don't have it on your calendar, December 12th through the 14th, see you in Indy PRI show for 2024. Don't miss it. Next up, I get to induct Paula Murphy into our Hall of Fame. Well, we all know about the great female racers like Shirley Muldowney, Janet Guthrie, and of course, Lynn St. James, and the multitude of fast and successful lady racers who have come along recently, like Erin Evernham, Danica Patrick, Catherine Legg, Erica Enders, and Jade Avedisian. However, if it wasn't for Paula Murphy, none of those previously mentioned ladies would have ever dreamed their dreams of speed. Until Janet Guthrie, the only woman to be allowed to drive an Indy car at the Speedway was Paula Murphy, who in 1963 drove a Novi-powered Studebaker. She was the first woman to drive a jet engine car on the Salt Flats, the first woman licensed to drive a nitro-fueled car, and also the first woman to have a fuel funny car license from the NHRA. She also set numerous speed records across the country. And to welcome Paula Murphy in to the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame, please welcome Cindy Sisson.
Paula Murphy was pivotal in drag racing's formative years as the first woman licensed to drive a funny car. In 1963, STP's Andy Granatelli brought Murphy to the Bonneville Salt Flats, where she set a 161 mile-per-hour women's land speed record in a Studebaker Avanti and became Miss STP. She also drove rocket-powered cars and survived a 300 mile-per-hour accident at Sonoma Raceway. Murphy later drove Granatelli's NASCAR Cup Series stock car to a woman's closed course record of 171.499 miles per hour at Talladega Superspeedway. Murphy was inducted into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame in 1992 and the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America in 2017. She passed away at age 95 in December of 2023.
I'm sorry. Every time I see that, I want to cry because she is such a special lady. We became very, very dear friends, and I used to spend a lot of time at her home and filming her, and she loved to drive the car. And I'm like, no, I'm driving the car. You're old. And she would yell at me because I drove too slow. So one time I let her drive, and we drove down the street, and she got a flat tire, and I was so excited. But I have a tradition, and I hope you'll all humor me. I am so blessed to be the executive director of Women in Motorsports North America, and there's so many people in this room I can point at now that have been amazing supporters. I would love to call you out, but there's too many of you that are supporting the future of women in motorsports. But my tradition is I like to do the wave. And my first one was at Pebble Beach Concours, and Sandra Button about killed me. We don't do waves at Pebble Beach. So we're going to do a wave now, and we're going to start way over there on the right. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and we're going to do a wave all across the room, okay? Are you all ready down there? Are you listening, or are you just chitty-chatting and drinking your wine? Okay, right, ready, 1, 2, 3. Rock on. You will never know where that will show up in the future. So I feel like it's home. Again, for some of you who know me, I have been in NASCAR a long time. I started out as the Ray-Ban lady, then the Gatorade lady, then the Roush lady. And I loved going to NASCAR races. Mr. France used to say to me every time he saw me, Cindy, do you still love NASCAR? I said, oh, God, I love NASCAR. But I haven't been around a lot, but being here today, just in this brief moment, I see so many people that have been so important in my life, and I'm so blessed to be here tonight to represent Paula Murphy. I will want to do a shout out to Ken Clapp. We started Women in Motorsports 2 years ago. It was founded by Lynn St. James. Anybody know Lynn St. James? Anybody know Beth Peretta? I'm going to stop for a moment. How many heard of Paula Murphy before tonight? That's a little sad because a lot of people don't know who Paula Murphy is. And there's a woman named Pam Miller. Does anybody know Pam Miller? Okay, Pam Miller has produced every NASCAR Cup race on Fox for the last 20 years. Let's give her a hand. She was the first woman to produce a Formula One race. And right after COVID, we sat for lunch one day and she said, Cindy, there's so many women out there that nobody knows about. So we wrote a series called Left Behind, and Fox picked it up, and our first documentary was on Betty Skelton. How many have heard of Betty Skelton? Please Google her. Go to my YouTube site. She's amazing. Paul's amazing. And how many have heard of Shirley Muldowney? Rock on. So Shirley, each of these documentaries launch in March on Fox. Thank you, Fox, on Women's History Month. We have won so many awards. We've been inducted into the International Hall of Fame, Motorsports Hall of Fame in London. Last week, Pam and I were in Beverly Hills for the Gracie Awards, which is the highest award women can win in film and television. And I'll tell you a secret tonight. I'm going to tell a secret. Pam would probably kill me. But we've been approached to do a feature film on both Betty and Shirley. And the money has been raised. The actresses have been selected. And that will be one of the journeys of my life. But back to Paula. Paula, it came about because her son, Dan Murphy, had a dream. And Dan Murphy convinced Eric Aronson from Fox to do a book. So Eric calls us and says, this is so amazing. This is an amazing story. Will you please do your next documentary on Paula Murphy? And we did. And it was a joy. And she's an amazing woman. Sadly, we launched her documentary at the Peterson Automotive Museum last May. And there were 400 people that were going to show up, or did show up. And 4 days before, we spent so much time with her makeup and her jewelry and her clothing, and she fell out of her bed. And she broke her femur, and the doctor said she couldn't come to her airing of her documentary. But if anybody knows me in this room, that's not going to stop me. So I found a doctor at the hospital, convinced him to let me kidnap her. I rented an ambulance. I got a lot of drugs for her because she was in so much pain. And thank God to In-N-Out Burger because she sat there and ate her In-N-Out and had the night of her life. It was a beautiful evening. And then sadly, she passed this January. So I thank you all. I thank you, Ken Clapp. Ken Clapp, you are amazing. You are my hero. Women in Motorsports has an award called Shero, and last year we honored Kim as our hero. He was the first person to step up and support women in motorsports every single year. This is our actually fourth year with our summit, and I want to do a shout out to our friends here at PRA. Tom Deary and Jim, they called me about 6 months ago and said, we want to be a partner. So we will be holding our summit this year, our 4th annual summit. It is sold out every year thanks to the support of Steve Phelps at Phoenix and Marcus and Jessica at Charlotte. And we hope to have 600 people there this year. It's going to be a kick-ass event. So we hope you'll all, men and women are invited. Jill Gregory will be there and many, many others. Love you, Jill. Love you, Jessica. Where's Jessica? I want to do a shout out to Marcus and Jessica. Our last two summits ago was held at Charlotte Motor Speedway thanks to SMI. In Phoenix last year, they sent 50 women, at least 3 or 4 women from every SMI track, and they are making a difference. So tomorrow, if you want to make a difference, at 12:30 at the Speedway Experience Stage in the fan zone, if you're here on track, we're doing our first NASCAR photo op. We've done it with IndyCar, IMSA, the list goes on. But let's break the record and have you all there with us tomorrow at 12:30. God bless you, and thank you, Paula Murphy, for being an amazing woman.
Well, he's already on his way back up. Please welcome Mr. Ken Clapp.
I was only on my way back up early because I knew I was going to get to kiss Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. Earlier, Mike Helton made some very nice remarks, and I just want you to know it meant a great deal to me, Mike. Thank you. I believe we failed to recognize past inductees that are here this evening. Did we name them? Well, I'm going to go real fast. I'd like them to stand. First, Linda Vaughn. Brendan Gaughan, who I think had to catch an airplane. John Moore. Phil Casey. Kurt Busch. Kevin Harvick. Owen Kearns. Bill McAnally. Gary Bechtel. Richard Woodland. Craig Q. Jim Pettit II. Last but not least, and I hope I haven't left anybody out, Alan Beebe. Okay, got it together. About 6 or 7 years ago, Owen Kearns and I started talking about recognizing persons that are no longer with us, in most cases not even a family member to be found, that had excelled in our sport. We decided we would start doing 10 inductions a year until we, and I'm talking about going all the way back to the early 1900s, until we felt we had recognized those that were worthy. This year, fortunately, we were able to find 3 family members, those being Louis Vermeil, the famed steward of Calistoga Speedway and the Northern Auto Racing Club, Johnny Boyd, and last but not least, Jack Dill. I got to tell you a quick story about Jack Dill. When I was 15 years old, I lied about my age and I bought a phony ID blank card, stationery store, and I used my dad's old Spice talcum powder and ran it through my hair. I didn't shave. I didn't need to very often, but I didn't shave for about 6 weeks. and I got a NASCAR Grand National Mechanics license. Took $10 bill, filled out the app, sent it into the old office in Daytona. About 3 weeks later, I came home from high school one afternoon, and lo and behold, there was an envelope with a license on it. Anyway, that same year, I was hooked up with a team that won the Grand National Western Championship that year. The driver was Danny Lentner, and the car owner was Kaz Kinsella. Anyway, Bruce's recaps were the tire of choice at that time, not only on the West Coast, but guys like Marshall Teague and, Herschel McGriff, of course, had gone on his 11-year sabbatical already after after 1954. Anyway, long story short, there was a gentleman that worked at Bruce's Recaps. He'd perfected the Cummins diesel tire for Firestone. The car was so fast you couldn't keep tires on it. His name was Jack Dill. I didn't even have a driver's license. I went in to pick up some tires one day. We were headed to L.A. or San Diego, I don't remember now. But anyway, to pick up some recaps. And he said, Ken, come out here in the back with me. And he had a jack and an air gun, great big old heavy Ingersoll Rand. He said, I'm going to show you how to change tires faster by slowing down. He did. The next year, he called the guy that owned our race cars, Kaz Kinsella, and he said, there's a guy coming out from Daytona Beach. This is 1956. And pretty good driver, and he needs a West Coast pit crew for these initial USAC races. So I knew who Marshall Teague was. I never dreamed in a million years I'd ever work on his team, but I did. And Jack Dill was responsible for all of that. So I'm going to make it short, but we're going to recognize Jack Dill at this time, and I'd like for his son or grandson, help me, come forth. David, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
David Dill. Congratulations. Have something for you.
All right. Thank you so much. Wow. Look at that.
The biggest one I ever ordered. 15. That's a big hand. Would you like to say if absolutely? I'll step aside.
Good evening. I'm 67. We have had a ton of great public speakers here tonight, so let's change it up. My family and I are here to honor the induction of my dad, Jack Dill. He's a former head of the racing division at Bruce's. Tire started in 1950. A career like my dad's doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens with the help of great tire men like Hal Halverson, Ralph Larson, and Archie MacArthur, whose contributions pushed the racing division at Bruce's to the top of the industry in the early days. Bite by Bruce's, if you guys have ever seen the decal. And that teamwork just didn't happen at work. When looking over the pictures of Hall of Fame members, I recognized many of the faces from scenes in our living room. And the ones who hadn't been to our home had been introduced to us kids at racetracks all across the Bay Area. Places like Fremont, Half Moon Bay, Altamont, San Jose, Oakland, the indoor exhibition center, the midgets, where you just get gassed out of there. You name it, we were there, we were witnessing history. And though we didn't really know it at the time. Dad would work, 6 days a week, and he couldn't wait to come home on a Saturday and grab one of us and take us to the races with him. And we would line up to see who it was going to be. I probably got more than my share. But meeting guys like Carroll Shelby or Dick Atkins or Emery Cook in our living room of our house was a pretty common occurrence. Part of our dad's job. At the time, I'm not really sure we got it. But believe me, tonight we get it. And I want to thank you all so much, and Ken, for remembering my dad. It means so much to us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, next up to the stage, please welcome Mr. Tommy Hunt back to the stage once again.
I'm back. Well, folks, this is very special for me. We're here to induct Louis Vermeil into the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame. I hope you are enjoying this gala celebration and induction of key individuals who have made a major contribution to auto racing on the West Coast. Ken Clapp and his staff have created an event recognized by the auto racing fraternity as a key component in preserving and promoting auto racing history. Currently, the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame has contributed over $1 million to worthy charities, as he told you earlier. This year, Louis Vermeil will be inducted into this prestigious Hall of Fame, and I'm honored to be selected as a presenter. Tonight, I will be joined by the Mayor of Calistoga, Donald Williams, to present members of Louis Vermeil's family with his induction award, and Don will come up shortly. Recently, Don Williams, as mayor, has directed the effort to make the city of Calistoga the owners of the local fairgrounds and thus preserve the property's rich heritage. As most of you know, Calistoga Speedway resides on this property and is considered the home of Louis Vermeil. Very simply put, Louis Vermeil was the driving force in developing Calistoga Speedway and the Northern Auto Racing Club into legendary status. From 1938 to 1985, Louis was involved with big cars, later to be named sprint cars in Northern California, primarily at Calistoga Speedway. He participated as a car owner with notable drivers such as Johnny Anderson, Mike Andrietta, Don Branson, Hal Cole, Jim Hurtubise, Rajo Jack, Jack Pachetow, Tex Peterson, Mike Riley, Bob Veith, and Clay Walsh. Three of these drivers went on to compete in the Indianapolis 500, Don Branson, Jim Hurtubise, and Bob Veith. Louis was the car owner champion in 1950 with Mike Ryan as his driver. In 1955, Louis became an official with the organization presiding over racing at Calistoga Speedway. This organization, ARA, was no longer capable of administering races in 1960. Although Louis had an automotive repair and towing business, he recognized that a new sanctioning body would need to be started in order to continue racing at Calistoga. Louis became one of the founding fathers of the Northern Auto Racing Club, and in 1965 was made president. NARC was developed into a universally recognized sprint car group and succeeded in establishing itself as Northern California's premier open-wheel club. Great food cooked by his bride Alice, a place to work on their cars, and even lodging was always available to race teams participating at Calistoga, and Louis' Al Garage was a regular meeting place for racers. Unselfishly, Louis committed himself to the success of NARC to the extent that often Louis would subsidize necessary expenditures out of his own pocket. Racers that needed parts were often given those important pieces by Louis. Louis had no limits regarding work required to make Calistoga Speedway and NARC successful. Actually, Ken Clapp played a part in NARC and Louis' legacy, as he called on NARC to officiate an open sprint car event at San Jose Speedway when NARC needed some financial assistance. With all this talk about NARC, I would like to recognize Jim Allen and several-time NARC, I don't know if Brent's here or not, but several-time champion Brent Kading for their recent efforts to continue on with NARC's historic legacy. My family is proud to say that they have done their best to preserve and recognize Louis' amazing efforts by staging the yearly Louis Vermil Classic at Calistoga Speedway. At this time, I welcome Louis' family members to the stage to receive these awards on behalf of Louis. Donald Williams, please join me as well. Super Bowl winning son Dick, who graciously supports the Louis Vermil Classic, honoring his dad, was unable to attend tonight due to schedule conflicts and personal responsibilities. He was disappointed, but happy that family members were here to accept. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to recognize one of my heroes. I think Donald has a few words for you as well.
Thank you, Tommy Hunt, and thank you, Ken Clapp, for allowing me and my wife to attend tonight. It's my honor and privilege to attend on behalf of the City of Calistoga, honoring a very eminent and distinguished family in Calistoga. Most of you know we're about 40 miles or an hour north of here at the top of the Napa Valley. The Vermeil family is distinguished, and Louis was eminent among them. And so it's my privilege and honor to participate in honoring the family and Louis in particular with this award. The other way we're going to honor the family and Louis Vermeil and all of his work for the Calistoga Raceway is by attempting to continue its tradition of success in the racing sport world. The raceway has been inactive in Calistoga for the last half dozen years or so. It's owned by the County of Napa, but I'm happy to say that the City of Calistoga has just lately come to terms to purchase the fairgrounds, which is part of the racetrack there in Calistoga. So we're hoping to consummate that deal, that transaction, in just a few weeks, in which case the fairgrounds will return to the ownership of Calistoga, and we're hoping to bring that racetrack back to life and resurrect it as the iconic track that it has been. And I want to thank you, Tommy Hunt, also, because in our negotiations with the County of Napa, many of you wrote letters to the supervisors and to the council members of Calistoga, urging us to try to find a way to bring this racetrack and the fairgrounds back to life and resurrect it. And those letters that you wrote were immensely helpful. There were hundreds and hundreds of letters from fans and participants in the racing world, and they were most helpful. And when I'm at the negotiating table talking to the county, I have the confidence knowing that there's so much support out there for this racing world that Louis fostered so much in Calistoga. So my thanks to you. We're looking forward to resurrecting that racetrack and the fairgrounds in the very near future. And in the meantime, we're most honored and privileged to accept the award that the Hall of Fame is inducting Louis in tonight. So thank you very much.
Do you want us behind the center? No, wherever you want.
I'll go over by her. Take one for the team.
Well, I know it's been a long night, but hang in there. We're closing in on it. We can see the checkers from here. Our next presenter, if you will, a man who had the dream of building a road course in Northern California, and he made it happen, Thunder Hill Raceway. Please welcome Mr. David Vodden.
Thank you very much, Ralph. I have to tell you that Louis Vermeil and Alice Vermeil, this house in Calistoga that had the owl garage behind it, when I visited and stayed overnight with them after the Northern Auto Racing Clubs at Calistoga, this house was in an area where the ground moved because of water and pressures, and then the doors didn't close and the walls were crooked. And then, what was it? Dick. That had no foundation. Okay, well, it certainly definitely. Anyway, so Dick Vermeil fixed that house for him. But anyway, it's my great pleasure tonight, under the category Pioneers of Speed, to recognize Johnny Boyd. Johnny Boyd was born in Fresno, California in 1926. He drove in the American Automobile Association and the United States Auto Club Championship Series from 1954 to 1966. In that span of time, he had 56 starts. He finished in the top 10 31 times during those races, with his best finish being second at the 1959 Milwaukee Mile. Boyd qualified for the Indianapolis 500 for the first time in 1955. He finished 29th after being involved in the accident that took the life of Billy Vukovich. In a dozen starts, his best finish in the Indy 500 was in 1958, when he led 18 laps and finished third. In total, he finished in the top 10 at the 500 5 times. After 1949, Johnny Boyd became close friends with Bob Schweikert. Bob was from Hayward, California. Johnny Boyd qualified for entry in the 1955 Indianapolis after Bob Schweikert helped him work out handling problems and mechanical problems with his car. As you may know, as historians of the sport, Bob Schweikert won the Indy 500 that year. Later on, Bob was killed in a sprint car accident that same year. Johnny Boyd retired from motorsports as a driver after failing to qualify for the Indy 500 and the Milwaukee Mile in 1967. He died at the age of 77 of cancer. He is a member of the National Midget Hall of Fame. He was the 1951 BCRA Midget Driving Champion, and he had a tremendous record and was a tremendous contributor to the record and history of motorsports drivers from Northern California. Now, I have to tell you that I'm here tonight because Pete Parnagian was unable to make it. He's 91 years of age, and he almost made it, but I'm filling in for him tonight. So there is one story about Johnny Boyd that I'd like to share with you, and I got this story from Ken Clapp, and that is that Johnny Boyd raced a stock car. How many of you here in this room have ever seen a Henry J? Raise your hand. Is that a stock car or what? So Johnny Boyd raced a Henry J at a Tascadero Speedway here in Northern California, and we believe that to have been his only outing in a stock car. And again, if you've never seen Henry J, look it up. It is my honor tonight to welcome Junior. Junior is also known as Winona, the daughter of Johnny Boyd, who will accept his induction ceremony rewards tonight. Junior? I love that name. Thank you so much. You're on, kid. Well, we have to say something. Tell them you love me.
Okay, I'll tell you I love you. Okay, thank you very much to the West Coast Hall of Fame and Ken Clapp, and a special thank you to Philip Parnelli for your generosity.
we're just about done. About 40 years ago, I met a young man in the media field. He was an announcer, later became a highly accomplished broadcaster. In the Hall's 23 years, we have only given an outstanding media Hall induction 4 times. Shav Glick, Gordon Martin, Owen Kearns Jr., and the late John Parnelli. This old friend turned down an offer to work for me 40 years ago. He wanted to pursue his career, media, broadcasting, and so on. Smart call. Tonight, this is a surprise. Tonight gives me a great deal of pleasure to induct Ralph Shaheen into the West Coast Stock Car Motorsports Hall of Fame.
How do you like having your camera guy follow you everywhere you go? I love it.
Wow, I am absolutely floored. That's not on the script, just so you know. Man, which means I don't have any kind of a speech. I know you guys are all exhausted. Please just give me a minute. I don't even know where to begin. But actually, I do know where to begin, because it all began literally right here, about a couple hundred yards down the road here. There used to be a bridge over the start-finish line here. And underneath that bridge was an office trailer. And my first ever announcing job was calling AFM motorcycle races for a box lunch out of that office trailer at this very racetrack. That eventually led to me getting $25 in a box lunch for doing that. And it was amazing. And that led to so many things from there. Cycle Land Speedway for Low Moral up there. So many great guys came out of Cycle Land. Brad Sweet, Matt DiBenedetto, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, and me. I got $50 out of Lowell for doing Friday night motocrosses up there while I was going to school at Chico. Eventually out of that, I lied my way to my good buddy Jim McCallion, who was running the Del Mar IMSA race down in San Diego for Chris Pook. I called him up on a whim to see if he needed a PA announcer for Del Mar, and he said, no. He goes, but have you ever done any TV? We need a pit reporter for our IMSA broadcast. I said, oh, yeah, I've done a ton of TV. Can't believe you haven't heard of me. So he hired me, and my colleague on pit road was Chris Economaki. So I was a rookie pitching against Nolan Ryan. I got through that, and that led to the next gig and the next gig and the next gig, and walking across pit lane over the paddock area over here, and I saw Dave Despain and Bob Varsha walking this way, and I ran straight over to him and said, hey, Bob, Dave, I'm Ralph, nice to meet you. How do I get your job? And being as nice as they were, they took the time to tell me a little bit about the career and be nice to me and say, stay with us and let us know what you're doing. Ended up working with those two for, years upon years down the road, which was amazing. And then in '89 was the first cup race here, Banquet 300. While I was doing my PA announcing throughout Northern California, I was also doing some PR work for the track here. And they said, take the Mercure pace car. You remember the old Mercures? They said, take the pace car, pick up Rusty Wallace. Rusty was, I think they called it a Victory Circle program. He was the driver that would go out in advance. Is that right, Kurt? And he would go out in advance and do media. So they had me set up all these media interviews and everything. And I went and picked up Rusty at the Sac Airport and his PR guy, Benny Ertel. Many of you probably remember Benny. And I ran Rusty all around Northern California, did all this stuff. And it must have gone pretty good, because by the time the weekend was over, Benny offered me a job to move back to Charlotte and go to work for them full time. But I didn't want to give up that TV career, as Ken was talking about, because he was trying to get me to stay here to work with him. So I made sure Benny and them knew that I wanted to do TV as long as it didn't conflict with my requirements for them. They said, okay. Well, one of the guys they had on their list back then, they had Mark Martin, Kenny Schrader, Harry Gant, Davey Allison, and Dale Earnhardt Sr. And I'd been there maybe 2-3 weeks, and they said, hey, take the Suburban, go pick up Earnhardt Sr. at his house in Lake Norman, drive to the Lake Norman Mooresville Airport. You're going to get on his plane. You're going to fly to Pennsylvania and do a big autograph session with him and Harry Gant. Now, you understand, I had a little Mazda RX-7 sports car. I'd never driven anything as big as a Suburban before. I got Dale Earnhardt Sr. sitting here in the passenger seat, Harry Gant behind him, and Harry's PR guy behind me, and I'm wheeling this big Suburban down this 2-lane backcountry road around Lake Norman. There's a semi in front of me, and we're starting to go up a hill, and all of a sudden that Suburban gets real loud, because, you know, by the time you get into the throttle, it takes a while for that really torque to kick in. And all of a sudden the engine goes, what? And I'm like, what is going on? And I look down, there is a size 12 cowboy boot sprawled across the transmission tunnel and planted firmly on top of my tennis shoe, which is now flat to the floor and closing rapidly on that semi-truck. And I thought, oh, God, here we go. I'd heard he challenged you, and here's my first challenge from Earnhardt, right? What do? Well, I can't chicken out because then I'm done. My career in the NASCAR garage area will never even get off the ground. So I thought, well, we're going to make big news one way or the other, and I just swung to the left, went around that semi, and just as we crested the hill, I got past the semi, pulled back to the right, car goes the other way, and I look over at Earnhardt. He just took his foot off the gas and looked straight ahead. To the day he passed, never said a word to me about that moment. Never once. But I knew I passed the test, and that was a big thing with him, and here's how I found out a couple of years later that I passed. Daytona. Remember the year he flips down the back straightaway, goes up in the ambulance, gets in the ambulance and realizes all 4 tires are still full of air, gets back out of the ambulance and goes back to pit road? Well, I'm working for CBS on pit road. So race finishes, Dale drives his car back into the garage area, back by the old Goodyear building, and our producer's screaming in the head, somebody's got to get Earnhardt, somebody's got to get Earnhardt. I said, I got him. I go running back there. I come around the corner, and there's this smoking heap of Goodwrench Chevy sitting there, Dale in the middle, and it felt like 1,000 media guys surrounding the car, because once again, he had lost at Daytona. We're live on CBS. I got my microphone, my cameraman following me, who had just lost power to his camera, and I dive into the crowd, and I come through, and Dale's there, and he goes, what do you need? And I said, well, we're still live on the air. I've got to get an interview with you. They're in victory lane right now. I'm waiting for a battery for my camera, so we got some time. I'll go wherever you want to go. He goes, let's go back to the hauler. I said, great, I'm following you. Now I'm screaming into the microphone, I got Earnhardt, because I don't want to miss this interview. He starts through the crowd, and he reaches back, grabs me by my belt loop, and he's just pulling me through the crowd like this. And we get all the way back to the hauler, and he jumps up on top of the ice chest that was sitting there, and he looked out at the media members, and I'll never forget this. He said, I'm not talking to any of you until I'm done talking to Ralph. And I thought, oh my God, Dale Earnhardt just said that? You got to be kidding me. I got Earnhardt, send it down, hurry up, you know. So we knocked out the interview, and it was just amazing. There's been so many moments like that in my career that as I look back on it, Jimmie's flipping win, that moment with Dale, calling the first ever live Knoxville Nationals on TNN, first live U.S. Nationals from Indy on TNN. Moments like that I'll never forget. Crazy moments too, like Motor Madness on TNN. I'm sure many of you suffered through that like I did. It was a moment in time, but it's been incredible. And I could not have gotten here if it wasn't for my mother and my father who got me started in this. My dad taking me to my first race, the old Fairgrounds Mile in Sacramento, becoming a huge fan of Mario and AJ that very day. Tommy, I know you remember that day very well. My mother, who my dad passed when I was 12, my mother, Lord rest her soul, when my dad died, I really wanted to come here for the IMSA race that summer of '77. And my mom had terrible sense of direction. Couldn't find her way anywhere. She got a friend and a map and made a handful of dry runs from Sacramento to Sonoma so she could take me to the race. So, moms. And finally, Ken Clapp, who's been a mentor and a father figure to me forever in my career. I can't thank him enough for this moment. I'll never forget it. And my wife, Kimberly, my daughter, Olivia, and my son, Lucas, who have helped me get to my now 36th year on national television and helped me even launch a television network, which we've done this year. So here we are at Sonoma Raceway where it all started, and now I get this unbelievable honor here in front of all my friends. Thank you all. Good night. It's going to be an amazing year. Do me a favor, please leave the flowers on the table. They're all being donated to charity. Kurt Busch, thank you for voicing all of our pieces up here tonight. It was great. You did an awesome job. Don't take my job, Kurt. And have a great race weekend, everybody, and we'll see you back here next year. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, ladies. You did great tonight. Thank you.
You remember drinking with me one night?
Of course. Can't believe it. Huh? There's a thing with me.
Right here. No, this is jury dinner. Jury dinner. what inning we were at? We should have 3 guys in a bar. It happened in church. That's where the knockdown drag out happened.
Yeah, church.
The minister was living. Anyway, well, it's quite a shock. That's the dinner I want to go to. Most of them you can't tell. Yep. You be here tomorrow? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Go do your thing. Go do your thing.
That wasn't Jimmie yet. I knew that wasn't him. I was trying to tell you. You should take it from like down there, though. What are you doing?
Get out of my way.
I mean, she's looking directly up at us. Yeah, that is not going to be a good look, I'm sure.
I know I leaned over to Will. It was I leaned over to Paula at one point. I was like, pro tip. I was really well as not She was funny. She was trying to be a little crazy. I was trying to like
Swanson, we know how stressful it is. Thank you.
He's got, obviously, he's the top 5 in points, and it's fitting me right now, which everybody's like, okay, we'll take that. And between you and me and the sign over here, there's already 6 cars. Oh, wow.
The whole time walking here over the years, you know, just watching go through the nation, I knew that your passion, your drive,
sorry.
you can do it. He's going to make it. You know, he has talent, and your passion, and your drive, and your ambition. What's going to happen? That would be, you know, she was really good. I'm growing up.
But I was negotiating, and I drove all the way up to negotiate with her. She was calling you. You were man. And I'll never forget, that was the first sponsorship deal Jesse ever had. My wife, Elizabeth, Carlos Vieira. They have head of 5150.
We're just talking about how awesome it's been just to experience Jesse's movement up to where he's at now. Did I see something where there's somebody jump on his hood?
Yeah.
He was at our table.
That was crazy.
Yeah. So he was 7th at 4. Well, he would have been top 5. He didn't have the car. He would have been top 5-ish. And the guy in front of him is so the hood was bent up in the front. The spotter had to go right to right.
And I'm just kind of flipping through, and all of a sudden I see somebody jump on a hood. I'm like, what was that? You know, it's just lovely.
Oh, I'm sorry, of course.
Well, I want to say it was very
Yes.
I want to get a picture. Here, a picture. Yeah. Here, shoot one, honey. Shoot one. I just want to get one. Thank you, sweetheart. Anyway, they looked at me that to have somebody in your Oh my God. Keep it going, man. Keep it going. One day at a time. One day at a time. God bless you.